engrossed in his cultivation. Qi Ming rested her chin on her hand, quietly seated beside him, occasionally gracing him with a sweet smile. Time passed unmarked, until suddenly, a brilliant light erupted from within Yan Bei, illuminating him with a crystalline radiance, allowing one to glimpse his powerful heart. His entire being resembled a masterfully carved crystal, resplendent in its beauty. Once I successfully transcend my heart, I shall step into the extraordinary realm. Yan Bei exhaled a breath of lingering impurities and slowly opened his eyes. His entire body had completed the process of transcendence, leaving only the crucial heart. Once he achieved the same with it, he would shatter his shackles and ascend to the extraordinary. In comparison to you, my goddess of the Fire Phoenix Valley pales in insignificance. Qi Ming playfully stuck out her tongue, akin to a little kitten nestling into Yan Bei's embrace. Since awakening her ice soul profound body, her cultivation had surged remarkably, reaching the first level of the Divine Palace realm. However, despite this commendable achievement, it paled in comparison to Yan Bei's prowess. With a wry smile, Yan Bei shook his head. Indeed, his cultivation rendered him invincible among the younger generation. Yet, the adversaries he faced were formidable ancient beings, including those of the saint-level caliber. It was evident that even if he were to step into the extraordinary realm, it might still prove insufficient. To truly attain unrivaled supremacy in the Eastern domain, he needed to reach the saint realm. He was confident that the day he ascended to that level, unless a saint king emerged, no one in the entire Eastern domain would pose a challenge to him. The following day, the Fire Phoenix Valley remained tranquil, with disciples engrossed in their own affairs. In stark contrast, the outside world was in tumult. Just moments ago, a beam of holy light had cleaved through the sky, its terrifying might shaking heaven and earth, as if an emperor had made an appearance, radiating overwhelming pressure. It was Feng Jiutian, stepping out of the Fire Phoenix Valley once more, heading towards the location of the Holy City in the Eastern Domain. The Holy City was the most enigmatic place in the entire Eastern Domain. Although it appeared as a mere city, it was teeming with a plethora of cultivators from all walks of life. Any notable figure or force in the Eastern Domain had established a foothold within its walls. This city served as the nucleus of communication throughout the Eastern Domain. Any shift in the winds would instantly be relayed to those with a presence in the Holy City. Boom! Above the Holy City, the sky fractured with a resounding crash, and a terrifying figure emerged from the rupture, its aura suppressing the realms, causing all cultivators within the Holy City to tremble. A saint had descended. What is this? The cultivators in the Holy City were momentarily bewildered, gazing in shock at the figure above. At that moment, several powerful auras erupted from the Fire Phoenix Valley stronghold in the Holy City. A group soared forth, landing near the saint, clasping their fists in respect and declaring, "We welcome the Ancestor's arrival." Indeed, the visitor was none other than Feng Jiutian. "There is no need for such formalities, Grand Elder. Your hard work over the years is appreciated." Feng Jiutian raised his hand slightly, an inexplicable force lifting everyone up. "Why has the Ancestor suddenly descended here?" the Grand Elder inquired, his expression laden with confusion. Being the overseer of the Fire Phoenix Valley's stronghold in the Holy City, he knew that typically, any news from the valley could be conveyed through a simple transmission talisman. Why, then, had the Ancestor chosen to come in person? Through the exchange between the two, the inhabitants of the Holy City discerned the identity of this saint. The Ancestor of the Fire Phoenix Valley, the newly ascended saint, Feng Jiutian. Although Feng Jiutian had only recently attained this status, his name had already reverberated throughout the Eastern Domain. Everyone was aware that yet another invincible saint had emerged. "Today, I have come to the Holy City to announce a matter of great significance." Feng Jiutian's expression grew solemn. Observing the Ancestor's demeanor, the Grand Elder shuddered slightly, sensing that this announcement was anything but trivial. After all, the matter that could prompt the Ancestor to personally announce it must be of immense significance. Surely, all present are aware that the former incarnation of our Fire Phoenix Valley was the Phoenix Feather Holy Land from a millennium ago, and I too hail from that sacred lineage. Feng Jiutian surveyed the surroundings with an air of authority and declared. The entire Holy City fell silent, for they possessed some knowledge of the Phoenix Feather Holy Land from 1,000 years past, and were well aware that Fire Phoenix Valley was its predecessor. The great battle that ensued at that time involved countless factions, and the sole Holy King of the Eastern region, the Phoenix Feather Holy King, met a tragic end in that conflict, a memory that still sends shivers down the spine to this day. My original intention in founding Fire Phoenix Valley was to one day restore the Phoenix Feather Holy Land. Now that I have attained the status of a saint, it is only natural that the Phoenix Feather should be reinstated. Henceforth, Fire Phoenix Valley shall officially be renamed Phoenix Feather, bearing the title of Holy Land. Feng Jiutian's demeanor was imposing, his voice resonating like a great bell. echoing across the expanse of the sky. At this moment, as Feng Jiutian ascended to the rank of saint, none dared to defy his will. His words were akin to a divine decree, to which all were compelled to comply. The restoration of the Phoenix Feather Holy Land. Upon hearing this, every soul in the holy city could not help but draw a sharp breath. With the addition of the Phoenix Feather Holy Land, the eastern region now boasted 3 holy lands, Jinyang, Dian, and Taichu. The balance of power across the continent would be irrevocably altered, and the equilibrium of the tripartite alliance would inevitably dissolve, leading to imminent conflict. Boom. At that very moment, the void shattered, and a terrifying figure enveloped in a misty aura descended, emanating an overwhelming presence that rivaled that of Feng Jiutian. Another saint had arrived, the Taichu Holy Emperor. His presence elicited gasps of astonishment from the crowd, eyes trembling as they gazed at the figure in the sky. The Taichu Holy Emperor, the master of the Taichu Holy Land, a formidable being at the 6th level of the saint realm. Feng Jiutian, how long has it been since you became a saint? That you seek to establish a holy land? Do you possess such grand ambitions? The voice of the Taichu Holy Emperor was chillingly indifferent, instilling fear in the hearts of many. From the moment he spoke, Feng Jiutian felt his own momentum being suppressed. The 5 minor levels of disparity weighed heavily upon him, and his expression grew grave. Chapter 152, The Confrontation of Saints. The Phoenix descends. In the holy city, 2 figures radiating an overwhelming aura of terror stood firm in the sky, their presence akin to deities imposing their will upon the heavens, leaving countless cultivators gasping for breath. The Taichu Holy Emperor stood with arms crossed upon the clouds, a majestic aura of saintly might sweeping across the realm, an unfathomable terror. The cultivators of the entire holy city looked on in astonishment at the 2 figures above. Saint-level powerhouses were rare for them to witness. Each saint in the eastern region was a figure of legend, capable of turning tides with a mere gesture. Now, with 2 saints locked in confrontation, fear gripped the hearts of many. Should Feng Jiutian and the Taichu Holy Emperor engage in conflict, it was likely that the entire holy city would be obliterated in an instant. At that moment, the heavens erupted with a thunderous roar. The collision of their immense auras reverberated. Feng Jiutian's face bore an expression of grave concern. The Taichu Holy Emperor represented a terrifying existence at the 6th level of the saint realm, and in a direct confrontation, he was far from being a match for him. But how could Feng Jiutian be daunted? With a resounding cry, a colossal phantom of a phoenix materialized behind him, igniting the entire firmament in an instant, its aura shaking the heavens and daring to contest against the Taichu Saint Emperor. I am a saint. What is wrong with establishing a sacred ground? Feng Jiutian bellowed, his gaze sweeping across the cosmos, the majesty of a saint laid bare. The crowd was taken aback, their expressions shifting dramatically. Some cultivators even began to flee the holy city, for if a battle of saintly proportions erupted here, even the residual waves of such a conflict would be beyond their endurance. You are indeed a saint. Yet the foundation of the Fire Phoenix Valley is still insufficient to be deemed a sacred ground. Surely, you are aware of the standards for establishing a sacred ground. The Taichu Saint Emperor's demeanor remained apathetic, yet a suffocating wave of terror radiated from his being, instilling fear in countless hearts. The standards for establishing a sacred ground. In the Eastern Domain, there exists an unwritten rule. To establish a sacred ground, several conditions must be met. While a saint may establish a sacred ground, it must possess a certain foundation. A sacred ground requires not only the saint, but also 3 beings of semi-saint level or above. Otherwise, it cannot govern a domain. Currently, although Feng Jiutian had attained sainthood, the Fire Phoenix Valley still lacked 3 semi-saints. Beyond Feng Jiutian, the strength of the Fire Phoenix Valley was negligible in the eyes of sacred grounds, easily obliterated by a single semi-saint. Standards? In my Fire Phoenix Valley, we have me, and the 2 predecessors, Fire Phoenix and Ice Phoenix, who were once at the pinnacle of the 9th heaven of Saint Realm. We also possess the formations left by the Huangyu sacred ground a millennium ago. My Fire Phoenix Valley is certainly not inferior to any of your sacred grounds. Feng Jiutian declared, his gaze sharp, a cold smile gracing his lips. Now that he had become a saint, the re-establishment of the Huangyu sacred ground was the dream of his life. He would not be easily swayed by the words of others. Fire Phoenix and Ice Phoenix? The Taichu Saint Emperor chuckled, shaking his head. A millennium ago, they were indeed formidable figures renowned throughout the Eastern Domain. But how much power could remain in their lingering souls now? 1,000 years ago, during the reign of Ice Phoenix and Fire Phoenix, the Taichu Saint Emperor had heard much about them. However, since the cataclysm of the Huangyu sacred ground, the bodies of Ice Phoenix and Fire Phoenix had been shattered, and only the last remnants of their souls had been preserved by the Huangyu Saint King. In their prime, Ice Phoenix and Fire Phoenix were indeed invincible under the Saint King, yet now, with only remnants of their souls remaining. The Taichu Saint Emperor could extinguish them with a mere flick of his hand. Thus, he naturally dismissed them from his thoughts. At that moment, a deafening explosion reverberated once more above the holy city. A resplendent phoenix, radiating seven-colored light, soared from the distant horizon, enveloped in a terrifying aura that suppressed the cosmos, surpassing even the saintly Feng Jiutian in power. The instant the Taichu Saint Emperor beheld this phoenix, his gaze sharpened. He could distinctly sense that the aura emanating from this phoenix was not far removed from his own. Another being of the saint realm had descended. A phoenix. A true phoenix. And it was of the saint realm. At this moment, countless eyes widened in astonishment, their expressions filled with dread. Today, the sudden appearance of three sacred beings has instilled a profound sense of unease among the inhabitants of the holy city. At this moment, the resplendent phoenix unexpectedly spoke. Addressing the Taichu Holy Emperor, "What thoughts occupy your mind? Do you believe I am unaware? Presently, there exist three sacred grounds in the eastern region, Taichu, Jinyang, and Dian, which collectively command the majority of cultivation resources and pinnacle powerhouses. Should the Phoenix Feather Sacred Ground be established now, it would undoubtedly carve out a share of resources from Taichu in the future. This is the primary reason the Taichu Holy Emperor opposes the establishment of the Phoenix Feather Sacred Ground." Chapter 153, The Aura of the Holy King. Above the holy city, a magnificent divine phoenix radiating seven-colored brilliance gazes down, emanating an overwhelming and terrifying presence that leaves onlookers aghast. How intriguing. I did not expect you two to arrive so promptly, yet it changes little, the Taichu Holy Emperor remarked with a hint of coldness in his eyes. His keen perception revealed the phoenix's origins, a fusion of the fire phoenix and ice phoenix. In our heyday, you were but a mere child. The voice of the fire phoenix resonated through the heavens, causing the void to tremble in fear of the immense power contained within. After their previous battle with the Holy Venerable, the souls of the fire phoenix and ice phoenix bore cracks. Fortunately, upon the ascension of Feng Jiutian, a thread of the purest essence of heaven and earth was bestowed upon them, which they did not consume, but rather shared with the gravely injured fire phoenix and ice phoenix. With this essence and Feng Jiutian's assistance, their wounds healed swiftly, solidifying their souls and significantly enhancing their strength. A cold smile played upon the lips of the Taichu Holy Emperor. The past is long gone. There is no need to revisit it. The era of the Phoenix Feather Sacred Ground has already passed, and the eastern region is firmly under the control of our three sacred grounds. With a resounding boom, a terrifying divine light erupted from the Taichu Holy Emperor, tearing apart the very fabric of the heavens, as he stood like a deity towering above the nine skies, instilling fear in all who beheld him. The Taichu Holy Emperor's stance was resolute. He would never consent to the revival of the Phoenix Feather Sacred Ground. Although our powers have waned, they are still sufficient to deal with you. The phoenix scoffed, causing the temperature of the entire realm to plummet. At this moment, the very laws of the universe trembled, and the heavens roared. Feng Jiutian, who had been standing by, stepped forward, unleashing an overwhelming aura. The establishment of the Phoenix Feather Sacred Ground is imperative today. No one shall impede it. The entire holy city appeared on the brink of collapse under their terrifying pressure, leaving countless cultivators in astonishment. Yin Bei was among them, having left the Fire Phoenix Valley to witness the rise of a sacred ground in the holy city. However, he had not anticipated such a series of events unfolding today. The interference of the Taichu Holy Emperor complicated what should have been a seamless process. Should matters not be handled with care, a holy war could erupt without fail. Yet now, his strength is evidently insufficient to alter the current situation. Even if he wishes to lend aid to the Phoenix Valley, he finds himself powerless. The Holy Ones loom like insurmountable peaks, leaving him somewhat breathless. Yin Bei clenches his fists and bows his head in silence, yet the longing for power within him intensifies. He must elevate his abilities swiftly, although he has already surpassed the majority in the eastern region with his half-step extraordinary realm. It is clearly inadequate for someone like Yin Bei, who has made countless enemies. At that moment, a thunderous sound reverberated through the heavens, akin to the collapse of the sky, as terrifying currents swept across the realm. It was the clash between the Phoenix and the primordial Holy Emperor. Each strike from the two resulted in the shattering of the void, unleashing innumerable spatial storms, a sight both fearsome and awe-inspiring. No, within the holy city, countless cultivators wore expressions of horror, their voices raised in panicked cries. The confrontation of the Holy Ones was undeniably formidable. The cultivators within the city, though not lacking in extraordinary prowess and even including semi-holy entities, appeared diminutive in the face of such might. The dreadful spatial storms continued their rampage. The cultivators of the holy city were utterly powerless to resist the oncoming tempests that threatened to tear everything asunder. Boom. The entire holy city trembled, its grand structures beginning to crumble, on the verge of becoming ruins. Fortunately, at that moment, a suffocating wave of energy erupted from the heart of the holy city. Following this, pure white holy radiance coalesced in the sky, enveloping the entire city and sparing it from destruction. It was the manifestation of ancient holy ones. An excited cultivator shouted out. Countless gazes trembled as they beheld the holy light in the sky. Each beam of radiance was the manifestation of an ancient holy one. Who dares to act so recklessly here? A voice, terrifying in its might, resonated from within the holy city, exuding an energy that seemed capable of subduing the very heavens. The primordial holy emperor, sensing this aura, was visibly shaken. This is the aura of a holy king. The emergence of a holy king's essence within the eastern region's holy city was unprecedented. The energy contained within a holy king is unfathomably fearsome. A single strike could easily obliterate even the peak of holy ones. The chasm between them is insurmountable, incomparable. The ice phoenix duo, having transformed into a phoenix, gazed gravely upon the holy city. This overwhelming aura was something they had only felt from two individuals. One was the strongest of the Phoenix Feather Sacred Land a millennium ago, their own master, the Phoenix Feather Holy King. The other was the mysterious Holy King who had led the assault on the Phoenix Feather Sacred Land. The Ice Phoenix duo's eyes widened in shock. They had not anticipated encountering a Holy King-level power once again after all these years. Now, their strength severely diminished. They stood no chance against a Holy King. If the other harbored malicious intent, their fate could be dire. Chapter 154, An Old Friend, Li Daoran. The terrifying aura continued to wreak havoc. The essence only a holy king could possess, striking fear across the entire realm. The expressions of the primordial holy emperor and his companions were laden with gravity as they gazed upon the heart of the sacred city, an overwhelming aura instilling trepidation and dread within them. At that moment, a voice of profound resonance erupted, akin to thunderclaps reverberating through the heavens, echoing in the ears of every individual. Why do you, the younger generation, engage in such strife here? Do you wish to dismantle the sacred city? Upon hearing these words, all present turned pale, retreating in haste, including even Feng Jiutian and the primordial holy emperor, formidable beings of saintly caliber. Their hearts were stirred by tumultuous waves of astonishment. The spiritual power embedded in that singular utterance was unprecedentedly terrifying. Fortunately, the speaker bore no intent to inflict harm. Otherwise, the sheer force of that spiritual energy could have shattered their very souls. This display alone was beyond their capabilities. Forgive my intrusion, esteemed elder, for I was unaware of your presence. Feng Jiutian stepped forward with cupped hands. The primordial holy emperor and others dared not act with arrogance, each bowing respectfully. A being of the holy king level commanded universal reverence. At the center of the sacred city, an elderly figure emerged, each step causing the very fabric of space to tremble, as though the cosmos struggled to bear the weight of the terrifying energy contained within him. The primordial holy emperor and his companions regarded the elder with eyes wide in apprehension, their pupils constricting in fear. Ah, a first-tier saint, I see. You must be the new saint who recently shattered the shackles, the elder remarked, his gaze fixating on Feng Jiutian, nodding slightly. Feng Jiutian's countenance shifted. Truly, a holy king could discern one's cultivation with a mere glance. The elder's murky eyes turned once more, and he spoke again. What is the cause of your disturbance here? To the extent of provoking a holy war? The elder's presence was immensely powerful. Each word felt like an insurmountable weight pressing down upon their hearts, instilling terror. The primordial holy emperor's expression altered, and he stepped forward, bowing respectfully. Esteemed elder, you may not be aware that as I traversed this place, these three sought to attack me, emboldened by their numbers. I was compelled to defend myself, and I beseech your forgiveness for disturbing you. Upon hearing this, Feng Jiutian and the others were incensed. They could hardly believe that such a dignified holy emperor would resort to accusing others first. Feng Jiutian immediately stepped forth to voice his indignation. However, before he could utter a word, the elder's gaze turned icy, a disdainful snort escaping his lips. Given your practiced techniques, you must be the current holy emperor of the primordial sacred land. How disappointing it is that Yi Tianyan, with all his wisdom, has produced such a character. As a holy king, though he had not yet fully awakened, he remained acutely aware of the events transpiring around him. His earlier inquiry had merely been to grant them an opportunity for explanation. Yet, to his astonishment, the primordial holy emperor had chosen to shift blame and provoke him against Feng Jiutian. Boom. The elder's voice resonated like a mighty bell, imbued with boundless terror. The primordial holy emperor's countenance paled, desperately attempting to summon his sacred essence for defense, but his power seemed infinitesimal before the elder. swiftly crumbling under the weight of that might, causing crimson blood to spill from his lips. Shock swept through the crowd. This elder had effortlessly compelled the primordial Holy Emperor, a pinnacle figure of the Eastern Domain, to bleed with but a single utterance. Such might was truly fearsome. Even Yanbei, standing amidst the holy city, was profoundly shaken. The disparity between a saint king and a saint was indeed immense. A flicker of fear passed through the gaze of the Taichu Holy Emperor. The power of the saint king left him aghast. If the elder before him wished to take his life, escaping back to the Taichu Holy Land would be utterly futile. Even more terrifying was the fact that the elder had uttered the name of his master. The previous Holy Emperor of the Taichu Holy Land was named Yi Tianyun, a formidable saint king in his own right. The venerable Taichu Holy Emperor clasped his hands in respect, preparing to speak further. However, as the elder's gaze shifted and bore down upon him with intensity, he swallowed back the words he had intended to voice. The elder then directed his attention towards the phoenix, still fluttering its wings in the void. A look of nostalgia and sorrow emerged in his eyes, followed by a long sigh. After so many years, I never anticipated encountering a disciple of an old friend. This aura bears a resemblance to hers. Alas, how unfortunate it is. Had I been in the eastern region back then, perhaps she would not have perished. The elder's name was Li Daoran, a contemporary of the Ice Phoenix's master, the Huangyu Saint King, and a longtime friend. Their cultivation levels were comparable, and they often engaged in philosophical discussions over wine. Over time, Li Daoran developed feelings for the Huangyu Saint King. However, due to their respective statuses, he never expressed his sentiments openly, merely hinting at them subtly. Yet, the Huangyu Saint King, devoted to her cultivation, remained oblivious to Li Daoran's affections, and thus they maintained a respectful distance. As time passed swiftly, one fateful day, while Li Daoran was traversing other great domains, he suddenly received a message from the eastern region. Upon learning its contents, his countenance changed dramatically as he hurried back towards the eastern region with all his might. Yet, it was ultimately too late. By the time he returned, everything had already been irrevocably settled. Alone, Li Daoran stood high above the ruins of the Huangyu Holy Land, gazing down upon a scene of desolation, a veritable mountain of corpses and a sea of bones. In a single night, the Huangyu Holy Land had been annihilated, and the rapidity of it all was staggering. He stood in the wasteland, lost in thought, speechless for a long time. This event had remained an indelible regret in Li Daoran's heart. Had he been in the eastern region back then, the Huangyu Holy Land would not have met such a tragic fate, and the Huangyu Saint King would not have fallen. For many years, he had harbored feelings of guilt. And now, upon seeing the disciple of an old friend, his heart was filled with myriad emotions. At this moment, the Ice Phoenix and the Fire Phoenix had already separated, standing in the void, gazing at the elder before them in disbelief. "Are you, Master Daoran?" the Ice Phoenix asked with a trembling voice, uncertainty lacing her tone. The Fire Phoenix looked at Li Daoran, anxiety etched across her face. In their childhood, Li Daoran had already gained renown as a Saint King in the eastern region. Due to the Huangyu Saint King, they had encountered Li Daoran on multiple occasions, but at that time, they were still young, and their memories were not vivid. It is worth noting that Li Daoran's travels to other great domains had spanned not just a year or a few months, but decades on end. Decades have passed, and the Ice Phoenix and Fire Phoenix have long since matured. This is also the reason why their impression of Li Daoran is not particularly profound. Chapter 155, The Establishment of the Phoenix Feather, Journeying Through the Mortal Realm. At this moment, all eyes are fixed upon the sky. "Master Daoran," Yanbei murmured, his gaze flickering. Could it be that this venerable holy king is an old acquaintance of the Ice Phoenix? If this holy king truly is an acquaintance of the Ice Phoenix, then today promises to be quite entertaining. Yanbei cast a meaningful glance at the Emperor of Primordial Beginnings. The Emperor appeared equally tense. If this holy king indeed is the master of the Ice Phoenix and the others, then he would be in considerable trouble. The wrath of a holy king is beyond his capacity to withstand, and even retreating to the primordial sacred land would be futile. The terror of a holy king is ineffable, and even the grand formations of the primordial sacred land would offer no protection. At present, he could only pray that he had not truly stumbled upon a formidable adversary. "Are you truly Master Daoran?" the Ice Phoenix inquired, uncertainty flickering in her eyes as she gazed at Li Daoran. It is no wonder that she did not recognize him. The two had not met for a millennium. 1,000 years have passed, during which countless dynasties have risen and fallen, and many prodigies have emerged and faded. Thus, their reunion inevitably felt somewhat surreal. Li Daoran's gaze softened as he looked at the Ice Phoenix and her companion. The title of Master Daoran was one he had not heard for many years. His murky eyes now glimmered with nostalgia, and the image of a woman adorned in a resplendent red gown resurfaced in his mind. Although the Phoenix Feather Holy King had fallen, she remained forever in his heart. He nodded slightly, a gentle smile gracing his lips. Little Bing, little Hua. You were once merely two little children tugging at my trousers, and now you have grown into formidable beings. It seems that Master has truly aged. The appellation Little Bing. Little Hua elicited a twitch at the corners of everyone's mouths present. Only Li Daoran would dare to address the Ice Phoenix and Fire Phoenix in such a manner. Had it been anyone else, they might not have lived to tell the tale. Upon hearing this familiar title, the Ice Phoenix and Fire Phoenix exchanged a glance, their faces lighting up with ecstatic joy. Master Daoran, it truly is you. Did you not venture to the Northern Plains? The Northern Plains, a vast expanse beyond the Eastern Domain, rivals it in size, perhaps even surpassing it. Li Daoran chuckled wryly, shaking his head, his eyes filled with a sense of loss. He had returned long ago when matters arose in the Phoenix Feather Sacred Land, but alas, it was all too late. Shaking his head, he chose not to dwell on old matters, but instead cast a glance at the Emperor of Primordial Beginnings. Then turned to the Fire Phoenix and inquired, what is the reason for such a fierce confrontation today? The Fire Phoenix gestured to Feng Jiutian, indicating that he should speak. For he is the helmsman of the Fire Phoenix Valley and the future founder of the Phoenix Feather Sacred Land. Feng Jiutian stepped forward hastily and bowed deeply to Li Daoran. I am Feng Jiutian, a junior, and I pay my respects to you, esteemed elder. Li Daoran nodded slightly, assisting him to rise. He still held some recollection of this new Holy One, having been awakened from a deep slumber by the aura of his recent ascension. Feng Jiutian elucidated the recent events to Li Daoran. Humph. Li Daoran let out a sudden cold snort, causing the temperature of the surrounding air to plummet. An icy chill rising from the ground that made one involuntarily shudder. Since ancient times, it has been established in the eastern region that a sage may establish a sacred domain of their own, as the master of such a domain. Do you not comprehend this? Li Daoran's gaze turned icy as he directed it towards the Taichu Sacred Emperor. The eastern region had not birthed a new sage for a millennium, and now that one had finally emerged, they were being ostracized by various sacred domains. Li Daoran's stare was terrifying in its intensity. The Taichu Sacred Emperor felt as though he were being scrutinized by a primordial beast, with his life hanging in the balance. The Taichu Sacred Emperor's expression darkened. As a dignified ruler of a sacred domain, he had never been so reprimanded before. Yet, he dared not retort, for he faced a formidable sage king. Li Daoran's demeanor was frigid, an aura of dread swirling around him that resonated through the void. In light of Yi Tianyun, I shall spare your life today. Depart immediately to the Taichu Sacred Land, and do not show yourself in the outside world for 10 years. A shiver ran through the crowd. The decree that the Taichu Sacred Emperor could not appear in public for a decade meant that the Taichu Sacred Land would be unable to make significant moves during this period, granting Feng Jiutian and his companions a substantial reprieve. The Taichu Sacred Emperor's face paled, his teeth clenched, yet he dared not retaliate. Yes, confronted with a sage king, he was powerless to resist, and despite the bitterness he felt, he had no choice but to endure. In the sacred city, Yanbei, witnessing the departure of the Taichu Sacred Emperor, finally displayed a look of relief. With Li Daoran's presence, the establishment of the Huangyu Sacred Land was undoubtedly a foregone conclusion. Having witnessed all this, he resolved to move on, for he had more pressing matters to attend to. His priority was to enhance his strength. Although his half-step extraordinary prowess placed him at the forefront for his age, the adversaries he faced were no longer his contemporaries, but ancient beings who had lived for countless ages. Thus, he must swiftly elevate his own power. Beneath the sage, all are but ants. Only by becoming a sage could one wield a true voice in the eastern region. On a rock by the boundless sea, a white-clad youth sat cross-legged, his eyes tightly shut as if he had entered a realm of profound mystery. The waves crashed against the rocks, the tides rising and falling, yet they could not disturb the youth. Indeed, the boy was Yanbei. Since departing from the sacred city, he had traversed mountains and rivers, treading upon a reed. He had drifted across the sea for an indeterminate time, ultimately arriving at this place, known as Little Fishing Village, inhabited by simple and kind-hearted fishermen. They possessed only rudimentary cultivation methods, primarily relying on fishing for their livelihood. Upon arriving here and gazing at the vast ocean, Yanbei's mindset began to shift, leading to profound insights. Soon, he naturally broke through to the extraordinary realm, becoming a true extraordinary powerhouse. Nevertheless, with the presence of the Dian Nyelian method, none were stirred by the events that unfolded. Subsequently, Yanbei resolved to remain in the small fishing village to better perceive the mortal realm and transcend the path of the great Tao. Yet, this decision to stay extended for an entire year. Chapter 156. The Small Fishing Village. Transcendence of the sixth layer in the small fishing village upon the rocky shore. Yanbei slowly opened his tightly shut eyes, murmuring, "Tomato, sign in." Ding. Congratulations to the host for successful sign-in. Reward, a century's worth of cultivation. Yanbei was already well-versed in this process. Absorb. Boom. A powerful surge of energy emanated from Yanbei, causing the once tranquil sea to suddenly churn violently. His aura continued to rise, only stabilizing after a considerable period. Yanbei gradually rose to his feet, pressing his palm into the air, and the tumultuous waves once again calmed. Transcendence of the sixth layer, Yanbei whispered to himself, a hint of satisfaction flickering in his eyes. After a year of cultivation and the recent absorption of a century's worth of skill, his cultivation had ascended to the sixth layer of transcendence, bringing him one step closer to the half-saint realm. Suddenly, Yanbei's ears twitched. He sensed something. In an instant, the radiant divine light and transcendent aura surrounding him dissipated into nothingness. At that moment, he appeared no different from an ordinary person, devoid of any fluctuations of spiritual energy, entirely resembling a frail scholar incapable of even lifting a chicken. Just then, a youthful voice echoed from not far behind him. Little by go. Sister Warner is calling you back for dinner. A lively and adorable little girl approached the beach, her face alight with joy as she waved at him. The girl had slightly tanned skin, likely a result of living by the seaside for many years, yet beneath her gently arched brows were a pair of sparkling, clear eyes, reminiscent of a worldly sprite, utterly charming. Little Bai Gu was the name bestowed upon Yanbei by the villagers of the small fishing village. Upon his arrival, due to his aloof demeanor and reluctance to engage, he never mentioned his name or origins. The villagers assumed he was a wanderer who had lost his memory, as they had encountered individuals of his ilk from time to time and had become accustomed to it. Noticing Yanbei's fair complexion, even lighter than that of most village girls, they affectionately dubbed him Little Bai Gu. Understood, Xiaoyu. I shall return at once, Yanbei replied, turning to the girl with a gentle gaze. Her name was Xiaoyu. She had lived in the small fishing village since childhood, but her parents tragically perished during a fishing expedition, falling victim to a formidable sea beast. Fortunately, Warner took her in, providing her with sustenance, and the two became inseparable. As Yanbei strolled along the coast, he soon arrived at a quaint village. At the entrance, he spotted several children practicing their fishing skills, a necessary talent for every villager in a fishing community. At that moment, a dark-skinned youth, around 17 or 18, approached him. Upon seeing Yanbei's return, the children rushed forward, their eyes filled with eager anticipation. Upon returning to the seaside, Xiaobai, you have come back. Sister Warner has been waiting at the door for you. A profound smile adorned the youth's face. Under the scorching sun, both children and adults alike exhibited a healthy, sun-kissed complexion. Thus, Yanbei, strolling through the quaint fishing village, drew considerable attention. Awu, have you completed today's training tasks? Yanbei inquired, casting a stern glance at the boy. At this remark, the boy immediately fell silent, akin to a frostbitten eggplant. Yanbei had previously witnessed the rudimentary training techniques in the fishing village, which he deemed quite elementary. Hence, he occasionally imparted some martial skills to the children. With a system at his disposal, even the items he casually discarded could be perceived as treasures by ordinary folk. The children were no exception. The techniques he had taught them were vastly superior to the village's offerings. Thus, upon Yanbei's return, the children rushed towards him, eager for further instruction. I'm busy today, let us wait until next time. Awu has mentioned that Sister Warner is waiting for me to dine, he said, gazing at the expectant faces of the children, shaking his head with a bittersweet smile. It wasn't that he was stingy. Rather, he felt he had already imparted enough knowledge. Until the children's cultivation improved, he had no intention of teaching them anything further. Taking Xiaoyu by the hand, Yanbei navigated through the throng. Soon, they arrived at a small wooden cabin. Before the entrance stood a tall and graceful woman, her skin a healthy shade of sun-kissed brown, her figure exuding a unique allure. This was Sister Warner. She was gazing into the distance, reminiscent of a woman waiting for her husband to return home. When Yanbei and Xiaoyu came into view, Sister Warner's face instantly brightened with a radiant smile. You're back. Come in for dinner. Her voice was gentle, reminiscent of a spring breeze, enveloping one in warmth. It was her presence that bestowed upon Yanbei a sense of familiarity, the essence of home. Sorry to keep you waiting. Let us dine, Yanbei said, pulling Xiaoyu's hand as they stepped inside the wooden cabin. Every time he entered, his heart found an extraordinary tranquility. In that moment, he seemed to forget everything. Casting aside all worries, he imagined himself as an ordinary person, a simple fisherman in the small village. Xiaobai, these are the provisions the village chief and the others brought back from the sea today. I made a few dishes, though I am uncertain if they suit your palate. Sister Warner remarked, brushing a stray lock of hair from her forehead and gesturing toward the spread on the table. Yanbei gazed at the table, unable to suppress a gulp of anticipation. This was no mere assortment of dishes. It was a lavish spread of octopus, ribbonfish, sea urchins, and lobsters, a veritable feast of seafood. I must say, Sister Wanner's culinary skills are truly remarkable. Each ingredient she prepares is a feast for the eyes, enticing one to indulge in a taste. Upon seeing the array of dishes, Xiaoyu could hardly contain her excitement, leaping up in delight. The three of them enjoyed a sumptuous seafood banquet, creating a scene of warmth and camaraderie. Yanbei, gazing out at the starry sky, could not help but smile faintly, reveling in the comforting sensation of being cherished, as if adopted by another. Chapter 157. The sea beasts and the village chief's intervention. Night enveloped the ocean in serene silence, with gentle waves caressing the rocks, as if the sea were in a dreamy slumber. On the tranquil, dark waters, the moonlight carved a slender, luminous path, shimmering like silver scales. At that moment, Yanbei sat within the cozy wooden cabin, resuming his cultivation. He realized that with the arrival of night, his mind grew increasingly serene, and his spiritual cultivation progressed at a remarkable pace. Outside the door, Sister Wanner gazed at Yanbei with eyes full of starlight. From the very first day Yanbei arrived in the small fishing village, she sensed his profound strength as a cultivator. Despite Yanbei's aura resembling that of an ordinary person, devoid of any detectable fluctuations of spiritual energy, the intangible charm he exuded and his calm, self-assured demeanor distinguished him from others. It was not merely her keen perception, rather, the confidence and grace he radiated were innate qualities that no technique could conceal, for she too had once been a cultivator. Reflecting on her past, a self-mocking smile graced Wanner's lips as she cast a complex glance at Yanbei before turning to leave. Just at that moment, as she turned away, Yanbei's eyes slowly opened, gleaming with an extraordinary light. The night had deepened, enshrouding the small fishing village in profound tranquility. The waves and the howling sea breeze seemed to compose a lullaby, instilling a sense of profound calm. Time passed without notice. Suddenly, a resounding rumble pierced the silence. The ground began to tremble, and deafening sounds reverberated from all directions, causing the entire village to sway. Villagers rushed out of their homes, lighting torches with expressions of alarm. What had transpired? Could it be an earthquake? Many villagers, now wide awake, gazed intently towards the sea, their faces etched with gravity. Yet, under the cloak of night, even with the village illuminated by torches, the shimmering surface of the water remained elusive, obscuring anything beyond their immediate sight. Tiehu, your eyesight as a cultivator surpasses ours. What is happening? A villager inquired of a remarkably stout man beside him. Tiehu was one of the few cultivators in the small fishing village. Having reached the pinnacle of the Qi Sea realm, straining his vision, Tiehu peered into the depths of the ocean but could discern nothing unusual. Still, the thunderous sounds continued to echo in their ears, and the earth's trembling showed no signs of abating. I can't see clearly. Perhaps it truly is an earthquake, Iron Tiger said with uncertainty. Having lived in the small fishing village for many years, they had experienced earthquakes of various magnitudes, even enduring a tsunami in the past. Thus, the villagers had grown accustomed to such phenomena. However, they had never encountered an earthquake as tumultuous as today's. Previously, earthquakes would last no longer than a few seconds before tranquility returned, yet this time, the tremors persisted for several minutes without abating. At that moment, as Iron Tiger prepared to retract his gaze, his pupils suddenly constricted, and he exclaimed, "What in the world is that?" It seemed he had encountered something terrifying, his complexion paling instantly as he stumbled backward, falling to the ground. With Iron Tiger's scream, the hearts of the villagers felt as though they had been gripped by an invisible hand. "What did you see, Iron Tiger?" questioned several robust men who rushed over, their faces etched with concern. With the support of the burly men, Iron Tiger stood up again. Just as he was about to speak, his expression shifted dramatically. He gazed in terror at something behind the men, his finger trembling uncontrollably. The men soon sensed something amiss as an enormous shadow enveloped them all. The bright moonlight was obscured by an incomprehensibly gigantic creature. It became evident that the recent earthquake was merely the creature's movement. "It's a sea beast." The villagers, filled with dread, began to flee in all directions. Sea beasts are terrifying creatures dwelling in the ocean, colossal in size, and possessing intelligence comparable to that of humans. Some formidable sea beasts can even transform into human form, their every action imbued with terrifying power. Suddenly, a brilliant blue light erupted from the sea, and the immense beast spoke. "You insignificant humans, you deserve to perish." Its voice was piercing, echoing in the ears of all like thunder. Some villagers were instantly suppressed to the ground by its terrifying aura. As the villagers began to escape, sheer terror was evident on their faces. They were utterly powerless against such a creature from the deep. "Think you can flee?" The beast scoffed, conjuring a water-blue barrier that engulfed the entire fishing village, preventing any escape. Its pupils radiated a horrifying red light as it scanned the area, seemingly searching for something. Soon, it sensed an anomaly. The crimson glow intensified within its eyes, and its demeanor grew exceedingly ferocious. "You shall perish," it roared at the villagers on the ground. As an unfathomably terrifying tentacle emerged from the ocean, striking towards them with ferocity. Countless villagers turned pale at this sight. They were mere mortals. A single strike from such a tentacle would reduce them to a mere mist of blood. Boom! A blinding red light exploded as a figure suddenly appeared in the air, intercepting the tentacle and halting its advance. "Esteemed sovereign of the seas, I, a humble villager, have dwelled in this small fishing village for generations without ever provoking you. Why then do you choose to inflict harm upon us?" An ancient voice resonated through the air as the crimson glow dissipated, revealing a figure leaning on a staff. Standing resolutely in the void, "The village chief has arrived. We are saved." The villagers, upon seeing the frail figure in the air, erupted with excitement. A young man in white, positioned at the corner of the village, observed the village chief with a bitter smile, gradually dispersing the vast energy that surged within him. Chapter 158, The Sea Dragon Palace, the Mage. In this moment, the crimson light faded, and the village chief stood amidst the heavens and earth, facing an utterly terrifying behemoth. The monstrous creature, enraged by its thwarted attack, unleashed a furious roar. The sea began to churn violently as 10 massive tentacles surged from the depths, accompanied by towering waves that reached hundreds of meters in height, creating a scene of unimaginable terror. Such a spectacle caused the faces of the villagers to pale in fear. The mere sight of those tentacles, not to mention the colossal tsunami they conjured, could easily obliterate the entire village. The village chief's expression turned grave. "Makai King, my humble village has never wronged you. How dare you openly defy the decree of the Sea Dragon Palace and attack the humans residing by the sea? Do you not fear the reckoning that will follow from the Sea Dragon Palace?" The creature before them was none other than the notorious Sea Beast King of the nearby waters, Makai King. The Sea Dragon Palace, a formidable underwater power in the East Sea, governed a staggering 800,000 sea realms from its central stronghold. Though it was a dominion of aquatic forces, it was also home to numerous powerful human practitioners, including a formidable vice-master of the palace. It was due to this very reason that the human hierarchy of the Sea Dragon Palace had issued a direct order forbidding sea beasts within their jurisdiction from recklessly attacking humans. Those who defied this command would face annihilation. Upon hearing the name of the Sea Dragon Palace, a flicker of fear crossed Makai King's large, bell-like pupils, only to be replaced by a blood-red fury in an instant. With a thunderous crash, the 10 tentacles, imbued with the might of the tsunami, lashed out towards the small fishing village. The village chief furrowed his brow. He had not anticipated that Makai King would disregard the decree of the Sea Dragon Palace with such reckless abandon. Simultaneously, he pondered what grievance had provoked such unbridled wrath from this sovereign of the seas. "Water shield." The village chief pointed his staff into the void, and immediately, a radiant light emanated from it. The sea beneath surged skyward, coalescing into a shield of water before him. In an instant, as the water shield formed, Makai King's tentacles struck fiercely against it. Upon contact, the tentacles seemed to lose their momentum, their force diminished. Yet, despite this, Makai King's appendages continued their advance, mere meters away from piercing through the water shield. The village chief gazed at the advancing tentacles of the Ink Sea King, his brow twitching with anxiety. Should the Ink Sea King breach the flowing shield, the entire fishing village would meet its demise that very day. All the villagers were transfixed by this scene. Perhaps it was fate, for just as the tentacle was poised to pierce the shield, it suddenly halted, rendered powerless to advance. The flowing shield, which appeared as if it would shatter at any moment, had indeed withstood the Ink Sea King's assault. Yanbei stood on the ground, his eyes flickering with intrigue. Not a cultivator himself, yet able to thwart a beast of the primordial spirit realm. How fascinating. He had not anticipated the existence of mages in this world. Indeed, the village chief was a mage. In this realm, there are 3 primary paths of cultivation. The first, the most common, is martial cultivation, wherein one gathers the spiritual energy of the heavens and earth within one's own energy sea and meridians. In battle, one merely unleashes this internal energy to unleash terrifying power. The second is soul cultivation, where practitioners focus on the strength of the soul, wielding unpredictable means of attack. However, such cultivators are exceedingly rare in the current age of Hongwu continent, nearly non-existent. The third is physical cultivation, where practitioners enhance their physical strength through rigorous training, resulting in formidable might and overwhelming prowess. Yet the village chief transcends these 3 categories, belonging to a class of practitioners known as mages. Generally speaking, Mages are incredibly rare in the cultivation world. The primary reason being that their powers are entirely dependent on the staff they wield, should they lose it in battle. Even boundless magical abilities would be rendered useless. Moreover, mages rely on external forces, often viewed with disdain by cultivators. Though they may enjoy a longer lifespan than ordinary folk, they are still considered inconsequential in the eyes of true practitioners. A grand mage typically lives only 300 years, while a cultivator of the divine palace realm can live for a millennium or more, making the disparity clear. Thus, the appearance of the village chief astonished Yin Bei. At that moment, in the direction of the flowing shield, all the villagers exhaled in relief, their faces reflecting a sense of liberation. Splendid. The village chief has held back the Ink Sea King. Many villagers, brimming with excitement, shouted in unison, their hearts lifting as they witnessed the village chief's power to rival that of the Ink Sea King. Yet, upon hearing their cheers, the village chief's expression shifted dramatically. This is bad. As anticipated, the Ink Sea King, enraged by the thwarting of its tentacle and the raucous cries of the humans below, bellowed in fury, "You shall all perish." With a thunderous roar, it shattered the clouds above, unleashing a deep blue energy from its very skin. The village chief, witnessing this scene, was taken aback. Seal. A colossal character for Seal materialized before him, rushing toward the Ink Sea King. But it was already too late. Boom. The tentacles of the Sea King erupted with a terrifying force, shattering the entire water shield in an instant. The enormous seal was likewise crushed between the released tentacles. With the bindings gone, the Sea King's tentacles swiftly enveloped everyone, even snatching the staff from the village chief's grasp. How will you escape now? The furious voice of the Sea King echoed, its gaze falling upon those who had collapsed on the ground, notably Tai Hu and his companions. Die. A chilling voice emerged as an immense tentacle lunged directly at Tai Hu, this strike imbued with boundless rage, leaving no chance for survival. The village chief's eyes flickered, his brow furrowed in confusion. He could not comprehend why the Sea King was so fixated on Tai Hu. With his staff seized, he was rendered as vulnerable as an ordinary person, making it effortless for the Sea King to end his life, yet it chose to target Tai Hu instead. A foreboding sense of dread began to rise within him. Chapter 159, Princess Dragon, the Golden Octopus. Spare me, my lord, I shall never dare again. Tai Hu, fully aware of his inability to contend with the Sea King, knelt on the ground, repeatedly bowing in supplication. Upon witnessing this scene, the village chief's expression darkened considerably. He had come to understand the gravity of the situation. The Sea King, dismissive of Tai Hu's pleas, showed no hesitation as its tentacles swung down with ferocity. At that moment, an overwhelming azure light enveloped the small fishing village, a radiance even more potent than the aura of the Sea King. "Cease, Sea King." A cold voice resonated through the air, imbued with an air of indifference that rendered resistance futile. The Sea King's tentacles halted abruptly, its enormous pupils narrowing as they turned towards a corner of the village. "Salute the Dragon Princess." The Sea King, disregarding its desire for vengeance, adopted a posture of utmost respect, bowing towards the source of the blue light. The entire fishing village fell silent, all gazes instinctively drawn to the radiant beam, their expressions filled with astonishment. She is the legendary Dragon Princess." The villagers were utterly shocked, their faces betraying disbelief. Who could have imagined that a companion they lived alongside daily in their village was, in fact, the fabled Dragon Princess? Yin Bei's mouth hung agape as he gazed at the noble and sacred figure beside him, filled with an overwhelming sense of surprise. Indeed, the blue beam emanated from Sister Wanner. Bathed in the azure glow, she exuded an air of solemnity, radiating an aura of divine nobility that commanded reverence. Even as she wore simple, unadorned garments that disallowed direct gazes upon her. For she was one of the most exalted beings in the vast 800,000 miles of sea, the Dragon Princess. At that moment, Sister Wanner, the Dragon Princess, with her icy gaze, coldly remarked, "Now that you know who I am, you must surely understand the rules of my Sea Dragon Palace. Are you prepared to bear the consequences of recklessly attacking mortals?" At this moment, the aura emanating from the Dragon Lady was not particularly formidable, yet every word she uttered instilled an overwhelming desire to submit. This was an innate nobility, a majestic lineage that suppressed countless sea creatures within her. The expression on the Sea King's face grew gravely somber. In this vast expanse of 800,000 miles of ocean, the Sea Dragon Palace wielded ruthlessly cruel methods against any sea beast that dared to disrupt the established order. Some, whose transgressions were particularly severe, could even endanger their entire clans. Certainly, there existed some nefarious sea beasts that, after mercilessly slaughtering humans, sought to flee this domain. However, The reach of the Sea Dragon Palace's influence was so terrifying that no one could evade its retribution. Even if one managed to escape this particular sea, they would still be hunted down by the formidable forces of the Sea Dragon Palace in other waters, swiftly meeting their demise. Such iron-fisted tactics instilled fear in innumerable sea creatures, and the authority of the Sea Dragon Palace was sacrosanct, a principle etched into the minds of all aquatic beings in this realm. Of course, without such iron resolve, the Sea Dragon Palace could not hope to command this extensive ocean. Your Highness, the Dragon Lady, please understand that we of the Dark Sea do not indiscriminately slay the innocent. Rather, we harbor profound enmity towards these individuals. The Sea King's form gradually diminished, transforming into a dark-haired man, his skin a stark contrast to that of ordinary folk. Yin Bei was taken aback upon witnessing the Sea King's current appearance, incredulous that he would encounter a person of African descent in this alternate realm. The Sea King's visage bore an uncanny resemblance to the black individuals from Yin Bei's homeworld. Profound enmity? Do you truly believe me to be so easily deceived? The fishermen here are but common folk. Who among them could possibly share such deep-seated hatred with you? The Dragon Lady's gaze was icy, her azure radiance intensifying, evoking trepidation in those around her. The Sea King began descending from the heights, mindful not to act with impunity in the presence of the Dragon Lady, despite her legendary status having been diminished. Yet, her identity alone commanded respect. The Sea King understood that should this maiden in white desire his demise, it would take merely a whisper of her intent for countless sea creatures to rush forth to fulfill her wishes. Your Highness, I assure you, I am not one to indiscriminately take innocent lives. You need only inquire to learn of their deeds. The Sea King bowed slightly to Sister Wanner, then cast a menacing glance at Tai Hu and the others. The moment their eyes met the Sea King's piercing gaze, Tai Hu and his companions trembled. Their faces drained of color. Sister Wanner furrowed her brow. Witnessing the Sea King's unwavering demeanor filled her with an ominous premonition. Village Chief, please question them about what they have done to provoke such wrath from the Sea King. She observed the frigid malice in the Sea King's eyes directed at Tai Hu and his companions. The village chief nodded solemnly and approached Tai Hu and the others with an ominous expression. What have you done? Speak the truth at once. The village chief admonished sternly. The current predicament could not possibly be detached from Tai Hu and his group, though the extent of the severity remained uncertain. With the Dragon Lady present, if the situation were not too dire, it might still be resolved. The only concern of the village chief was the irreconcilable hatred. At this moment, Tai Hu spoke hesitantly, his gaze shifting nervously towards Mo Hai. What have you done? Speak. The village chief bellowed, his heart brimming with indignation upon witnessing Tai Hu's demeanor. Yesterday, while fishing at sea, I caught a golden octopus. Tai Hu stammered, trembling. A golden octopus. The very essence of the Mo Hai King was that of an octopus. And this golden creature was likely a descendant of the Mo Hai King, radiating an aura of immense potential. It was no wonder the Mo Hai King was in such a fury. The village chief's heart sank, and his complexion paled. And the octopus? He still clung to a glimmer of hope, trembling as he inquired of Tai Hu. In the wooden hut, Tai Hu swallowed hard, gesturing towards the direction of the hut. The village chief exhaled deeply, a look of relief washing over him, before turning to address the Mo Hai King. Previously, we were disrespectful. I apologize. I shall retrieve your descendant and return it to you immediately. Chapter 160. The first course, the death of Tai Hu with the eyes of the villagers upon him. The village chief prepared to head to Tai Hu's hut to bring out the golden octopus. However, just as he turned, a look of panic flashed in Tai Hu's eyes. Wait, chief. The village chief halted, furrowing his brow in annoyance. What is it now? His mood was foul. Eager to resolve the matter of returning the golden octopus to the Mo Hai King, Tai Hu's face was ashen. He gulped audibly, hesitating. Perhaps it would be better not to go. Huh. The village chief was momentarily taken aback, unable to comprehend why Tai Hu urged him not to proceed. Did he believe that by refraining from retrieving the golden octopus, the Mo Hai King would simply withdraw? Such a notion was absurd, given the Mo Hai King's current temper. Even the slightest harm to the golden octopus would surely spell disaster for the small fishing village. Wait, harm? The village chief suddenly recalled something, his complexion draining of color as he looked at Tai Hu with terror in his eyes. The entire fishing village fell silent. Hey, old man, weren't you going to bring forth my descendant? Why the hesitation now? The Mo Hai King regarded the village chief with an icy glare, his murderous intent unmistakable. Tai Hu, what on earth have you done to the golden octopus? The village chief's body trembled as he approached Tai Hu, seizing his collar and shouting. In that moment, a dreadful premonition stirred within him once more. Upon capturing it yesterday, I noticed something unusual about the octopus. I intended to keep it safe, but in the end, I wronged you, chief, and disrespected the beast king. Spare me. Taihu's voice quaked with despair, his body shaking uncontrollably. The village chief spun around. Disbelief etched on his face as he questioned Taihu. What did you do to that octopus? Despair clouded Taihu's features, rendering him speechless. The village chief dashed into Taihu's wooden hut, and the sight that greeted him filled him with horror, causing him to stagger back in shock. It was over. At this moment, within the humble abode of Taihu, there resided an immense stone pot, brimming with an assortment of delectable seafood. Among these culinary treasures, one dish stood out remarkably, a golden octopus, nearly the size of a human. It lay quietly within the pot, its tentacles completely severed, and half of its body had already been devoured. Last night, upon capturing this extraordinary golden octopus, Taihu initially intended to raise it. However, his companions argued that the creature appeared to be forged entirely of gold, possessing extraordinary properties. They contended that if it were refined, it could significantly enhance one's cultivation. At the mere mention of cultivation, Taihu's eyes gleamed with determination. As a warrior from a small fishing village, his most fervent desire was to augment his strength. The capture of the golden octopus represented a golden opportunity for him to soar to new heights. Should he transcend to the realm of thunder tribulation, countless villagers would surely gaze upon him with admiration. With these thoughts in mind, Taihu resolved to take decisive action. He brought the golden octopus home and swiftly severed its tentacles to prevent any escape. Soon enough, laying of seafood, gathered from the previous day's harvest, culminated in a grand feast, with the unfortunate golden octopus as the centerpiece. Upon witnessing the state of the golden octopus, the village chief's face turned pale. You foolish boy, I could just as easily strike you down. His beard bristled with fury, illustrating the depths of his anger. The descendant of the Sea King had been consumed by Taihu. Not only the village chief, but also Sister Warner, had grasped the situation unfolding within the wooden house. Her expression shifted, for she understood all too well that preserving the small fishing village was now an arduous task. The Sea King's progeny had been slaughtered and transformed into a meal. Anyone would react similarly in such a circumstance. Even if this incident reached the Dragon Palace, none would deem the Sea King at fault. All of this was the consequence of Taihu and his companions' actions. Warner's gaze flickered with complexity. Having lived in the fishing village for several years, she held a favorable impression of the villagers. Yet now, stripped of her powers, the energy radiating from her was solely reliant on the pendant around her neck. If conflict were to arise, she would undoubtedly be no match for the majestic sea beast before her. At that moment, a voice pierced through the tension. Old man, were you not to bring forth the descendant of this king? The Sea King's gaze was icy as he fixed it upon the village chief, then bellowed. Where is it? With a thunderous roar, a terrifying aura erupted from the Sea King, enveloping the entire fishing village in a chilling wave of murderous intent. With his cultivation level, he was well aware of the happenings within Taihu's abode. His restraint was solely due to the presence of the dragon maiden beside him. Although the Sea King appeared rugged, his thoughts were astute. Upon encountering the dragon maiden, he realized that without a compelling reason, he could not exact vengeance. Thus, he allowed the village chief to investigate the wooden house, aiming to demonstrate to the dragon maiden that he stood as a victim in this scenario, thereby silencing any potential interference in his quest for retribution. Just then, a resounding thud echoed through the air. At this moment, the village chief appeared to age significantly, suddenly kneeling on the ground with a thud, bowing deeply to the Sea King. Trembling, he spoke. Sea King, this matter is a result of my lax governance, and I have offended you. May this calamity not befall my family. I am willing to sacrifice my life as penance, only asking for your mercy upon the innocent villagers of our small fishing village. No, village chief, this matter arose because of me. Iron Tiger sobbed as he crawled towards the village chief. Get lost. You have no place to speak here. The village chief thundered, dismissing Iron Tiger with a fierce glare. Sea King, please kill me instead. That golden octopus was a momentary lapse of my character. I was wrong. I plead with you, do not harm the village chief. Iron Tiger's eyes brimmed with tears, realizing the gravity of the trouble he had caused. If not resolved, the entire fishing village would be reduced to ruins. What a poignant drama. However, the king was not swayed by such theatrics. Rest assured, today, you shall all meet your demise. The Sea King's eyes turned blood red. Since you seek death, I shall grant it to you. With a roar, the Sea King extended his enormous hand, which coalesced into a colossal energy-infused palm, crashing down mercilessly upon Iron Tiger. Sister Warner gasped, preparing to intervene, but as she summoned her spiritual energy, she discovered her dantian had been shattered. There was no surprise. In an instant, Iron Tiger was reduced to a puddle of flesh by the Sea King's strike. The village chief trembled, speechless, without his staff. He was no match for the Sea King's assault. Yenbei shook his head at Iron Tiger's fate, contemplating whether to act. Although rescuing Iron Tiger would have been effortless for him, he chose to remain a bystander, for the calamity was of Iron Tiger's own making. He had slain the offspring of the Sea King, and now facing death was only fitting. Yanbei's principle was one of karmic retribution. Every action yields a consequence. The seeds of past actions bear today's fruit. Thus, Iron Tiger's demise was inevitable. Chapter 161. Black Demon, are you done playing? Sea King, you have avenged your grudge. Can you not depart now? Sister Warner's expression turned icy, her gaze acerbic as she regarded the Sea King. Without any prior warning, he had taken a life before her eyes, displaying a profound disrespect. Had it been in the past, she would have ensured he paid dearly. However, recalling her shattered Dantian, Sister Warner's delicate fists clenched. She understood that the Sea King's recent actions were twofold: to eliminate his enemy and to test her strength. The Sea King, observing the Dragon Maiden's radiant eyes, realized his suspicions were confirmed. His earlier actions had been to validate a rumor circulating in the Sea Dragon realm, that the Dragon Maiden's Dantian had been destroyed and her powers lost. However, due to her disappearance, the truth remained unverified. Now, it appeared to be true. With this realization, the Sea King's demeanor lightened somewhat. If the Dragon Maiden were at her peak, even he would have had to retreat, fearing to take a life in her presence. But now, a cold smile graced the Sea King's lips, a murderous intent emanating from him. A terrifying aura erupted from the Sea King, a potent killing intent directed at the Dragon Maiden. Sister Warner's complexion shifted slightly as she took a step back. Impudent. Sea King, do you seek death? Sister Warner, with a voice laced with fury, radiated in ethereal brilliance, reminiscent of a celestial being descending from the heavens. Upon witnessing the Dragon Maiden being momentarily repelled by his aura, Emohai felt a surge of delight within. However, he quickly muttered an apology, albeit with a hint of embarrassment. While Emohai attempted to express remorse, Sister Warner perceived no sincerity in his words. Yet, she refrained from elaborating further, casting a frosty glare at Emohai and commanding him to depart with urgency. In that moment, she resembled a mere paper tiger, unwilling to engage in further entanglements with Emohai. Upon hearing her words, Emohai's expression brightened with a smirk. Since the Dragon Maiden has spoken, I shall naturally comply. At this juncture, Sister Warner exhaled in relief. However, the brutal act of the villagers slaughtering their offspring and laying them upon a banquet table had utterly infuriated her. Even if she were to eliminate such despicable humans, it would scarcely quell the wrath boiling within her. Emohai's tone shifted, growing frigid. Sister Warner's countenance darkened, her gaze turning dangerously sharp as she confronted him. Are you implying that my words hold no weight? Emohai scoffed. My lady, I respect your lineage as the palace's descendant, which is why I have suppressed my inner fury to converse with you. However, I must implore you to refrain from interfering in the forthcoming events. Otherwise, I, Emohai, will not hesitate to extinguish every soul present here, even at the cost of my life. His conviction was palpable, as he vowed to settle matters with the small fishing village. Should you dare to strike, I shall obliterate you. Sister Warner's aura shifted dramatically, exuding a lethal intensity that resonated through the very fabric of the void. Emohai erupted in laughter. Your Highness, do refrain from jesting. Kindly remain still, lest my fervor inadvertently splatter your exquisite visage with blood. As Emohai scrutinized Sister Warner, a malevolent gleam flickered in his eyes, giving birth to a daring thought within him. You, Sister Warner seethed at his audacity. In the domain governed by the Sea Dragon Palace, who would dare speak to her in such a manner? She realized that Emohai had discerned her vulnerabilities, emboldening him to speak so insolently. Otherwise, not even 100 lives would grant him the audacity to address her thus. Emohai merely smiled, remaining silent, even leaning forward deliberately. Dragon Maiden, do stay put. And by the way, you emit an enchanting fragrance. You seek your demise. Sister Warner was instantly incensed, launching a fist toward Emohai's face. With a thunderous impact, as her strike was unleashed, the ethereal energies of the cosmos erupted in wild turbulence, creating a breathtaking spectacle. Emohai's heart raced. Had he misjudged the situation? Was the Dragon Maiden's power intact? Yet, in that fleeting moment, the chaotic energies subsided once more, lasting only an instant. Breathless, Sister Warner flushed red, having forcibly summoned her powers, aggravating an internal injury. Upon witnessing this, Emohai's smile returned. Dragon Maiden, your condition appears quite frail. Might I offer my assistance in examining you? Before ascending to the title of Beast King, I was renowned as an eminent physician in these waters. His flippant remarks darkened Sister Warner's expression to an ashen hue. Emohai did not lie. Before he ascended to the title of Beast King, he indeed served as a physician, tending to the ailments of sea creatures. His tentacles, remarkably agile and equipped with suckers, could effortlessly extract toxins from the bodies of the afflicted. If you continue this way, be wary that I shall return to the Sea Dragon Palace and summon my father to eliminate you. Sister Wanner clenched her fists, her gaze brimming with murderous intent directed at Mo-Hai. Standing not far off, Yin Bei, upon hearing her words, could only shake his head in disbelief. It was unclear whether Sister Wanner was merely naive or foolishly brave. Mo-Hai's intentions were clearly malevolent, yet she provoked him with such words. Was she not knowingly pushing herself into the fire? Indeed, upon hearing her declaration, Mo-Hai's expression turned grave, his eyes lecherously fixed on the Dragon Lady. Return to the Sea Dragon Palace? Do you truly believe you can go back, Your Highness? His gaze was unmasked, and his meaning unmistakable. Sister Wanner's complexion paled at that moment. What do you mean? She demanded, sensing an ominous shift in the atmosphere. What do I mean? Mo-Hai laughed maniacally before revealing a chilling smile. What do you think would happen if I were to break your haughty spirit and turn you into a mere bed slave? His words were devoid of any pretense. In this realm of the sea, he was the sovereign. As for the villagers, they would simply be eliminated. A tremor coursed through Sister Wanner's body, her eyes betraying a flicker of panic for the first time. Despite her formidable aura, should a battle ensue, she feared she might not withstand even a single blow from Mo-Hai. Enough of this. I have a Dragon Lady to indulge, so I shan't waste any more time here, declared the Sea King with an icy smile, his gaze sweeping over the trembling villagers huddled together nearby. Mo-Hai extended his palm, pressing lightly into the void. Instantly, a colossal hand materialized, descending upon the villagers with lethal intent. No. As the immense hand loomed over the villagers, Sister Wanner let out a desperate scream, her eyes filled with despair. Just then, a faint voice echoed throughout the heavens and earth. Have you had enough, Black Devil? A figure clad in pure white appeared as if summoned from thin air, positioning itself protectively in front of the villagers of the small fishing village. Chapter 162. Overwhelming power in the small fishing village. Just as the villagers braced themselves for the impending doom of Mo-Hai's enormous hand, a white-clad figure emerged from nowhere. The moment this figure appeared, the descending giant hand shattered into countless fragments before disintegrating into dust. This spectacle left everyone present utterly astonished. Who is it? Mo-Hai narrowed his eyes, his expression turning grave as he scrutinized the newcomer. The speed of this arrival was astonishingly swift, so much so that he had not sensed any prior movement. This implied that if the figure in white intended to strike him, he would have no hope of evasion. In stark contrast to Mo-Hai's shock, the villagers of the small fishing village were rendered speechless in their astonishment. Brother Bai, how could you? They gasped, their faces painted with disbelief as they gazed upon the figure. Indeed, the one who had thwarted this fatal blow was none other than Yin Bei. His inaction regarding Tai Hu's demise stemmed solely from the latter's own folly. Before us stand these villagers, who are simple and kind-hearted souls. It is unjust for them to suffer for the transgressions of Tai Hu. Thus, without a moment's hesitation, Yin Bei stepped forward. At this moment, Xiao Bai and her sister Wan Er swiftly approached Yin Bei, her eyes sparkling with intensity as they fixed upon him. She had long been aware of Yin Bei's status as a cultivator, yet she never anticipated that he would act to rescue these villagers. The king of Mo-Hai is the sovereign of these waters, possessing formidable power. Otherwise, he would not have ascended to the throne of sea beasts. It is noteworthy that intervening at such a moment equates to declaring war against Mo-Hai. Generally, cultivators would refrain from placing themselves in perilous situations. So even though Wan Er recognized Yin Bei as a practitioner, she harbored no expectation that he would step in to aid the villagers. Who dares to obstruct this king? Do you seek death? The king of Mo-Hai, with arms crossed, emanated an astonishing aura. Death, Yin Bei replied with a faint smile, shaking his head. There are far too many who wish for my demise in this world, yet you are not worthy. Although the king of Mo-Hai is the tyrant of the deep sea, he fails to impress Yin Bei. His true adversaries are those who stand at the pinnacle of the eastern domain, ancient beings who have existed for millennia. Yin Bei's words undoubtedly provoked the king of Mo-Hai, who found himself ridiculed by a mere youth. Impudent wretch, I shall see just how great your abilities truly are. The king of Mo-Hai's expression turned frigid as he unleashed a burst of speed, transforming into a blur as he charged at Yin Bei. Caution, do not confront Mo-Hai head-on. He possesses unimaginable strength as a sea beast, beyond what an ordinary person can withstand. Wan Er exclaimed, alarmed as she witnessed the king of Mo-Hai's advance. Typically, human frailty cannot contend with the immense power of colossal sea beasts, especially one as formidable as the king of Mo-Hai. Sea beasts, strong beyond measure? A cold smirk curled at the corners of Yin Bei's mouth as he nonchalantly placed one hand behind his back and slowly opened his right palm. The king of Mo-Hai, seeing Yin Bei's intention to engage in close combat, revealed a scornful smile. I presumed you possessed greater prowess. It seems you are limited to this. Explode. A surge of azure light pierced the heavens as the king of Mo High attempted to obliterate Yin Bei with a single punch. Boom. A thunderous sound echoed, shaking the ground and sending dust swirling, obscuring the figures of the two combatants. The villagers of the small fishing village bore expressions of deep concern. Yin Bei was undoubtedly their last lifeline, and they all fervently wished for his safety. Wan Er appeared exceedingly anxious, unable to fathom Yin Bei's audacity to engage the king of Mo High in physical combat. At that moment, as the dust began to settle, the silhouettes of the two emerged. When the villagers beheld the scene, they were rendered speechless with astonishment. I expected you to possess great strength, yet it appears you are no more than this. A voice, indifferent and tinged with disappointment, resonated through the air. Yin Bei stood with one hand behind his back, effortlessly enveloping the king of Mo High's fist with his right palm, rendering it utterly immobile. Mo High exerted great effort to clench his fist, yet he was horrified to discover that no matter how hard he tried, he could not break free from the other's grasp. How is this possible? You were able to withstand my attack. Mo High's eyes widened. He could discern that the individual before him was merely in his 20s, yet possessed such formidable power. Nevertheless, he had no intention of surrendering easily. Release me. Mo High bellowed, swinging his other fist, imbued with terrifying strength, towards Yin Bei. However, before his fist could reach Yin Bei, a dull thud resonated. Bang! Mo High's body was propelled into the air, crashing down harshly onto the ground. Yin Bei acted swiftly and decisively, his speed astonishingly beyond belief. At that moment, all present were left in shock. Even Wan Er, the dragon maiden, was rendered speechless. She had always known Yin Bei was a cultivator, but she never imagined him to be this powerful. Even during her prime, dealing with Mo High, the king of beasts, would have been a challenge. Yet in Yin Bei's hands, Mo High was like a mere child, utterly powerless to retaliate. Cough, cough. Mo High struggled to rise from the ground, wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, casting a fearful glance at Yin Bei. From their recent exchange, he had come to a stark realization. He was far from being a match for this young man. Though he was reluctant to admit it, the truth was undeniable. This youth's strength was extraordinarily terrifying, and that last punch had nearly cost him his life. Such a formidable individual should not remain nameless. Who exactly are you? King Mo High gasped, clutching his chest, enduring the searing pain in his heart as he inquired of Yin Bei. This person was truly formidable, and Mo High had yet to discern the full extent of his cultivation. It was not that Yin Bei was deliberately concealing it. Rather, the disparity in their powers was simply too vast. Although Mo High was the sovereign of the sea, he was merely at the Beast King level, equivalent to a powerful cultivator in the realm of the divine palace among humans. After a year of observing the sea and receiving systematic rewards, Yin Bei had ascended to the 6th level of the extraordinary realm. Such prowess would not only surpass a Beast King, but even the master of the Sea Dragon Palace would struggle to perceive his true strength. Chapter 163. Farewell. Affection. At this moment, Wan Er's beautiful eyes sparkled with curiosity. She too was eager to uncover the identity of this enigmatic figure. Who am I? I am Yin Bei, he replied, casting a glance towards the horizon, a hint of nostalgia flickering in his eyes, before he solemnly added, but you are not yet worthy of knowing. King Mo High's face turned ashen. When had he, the revered king of beasts, ever endured such humiliation? Yet, the youth before him was indeed fearsome, and despite his anger, he could only suppress it. This is the territory of the Sea Dragon Palace. Do you not fear the repercussions from the palace master for your actions against me? King Mo High's expression darkened significantly as he resorted to invoking the might of the Sea Dragon Palace. He hoped to instill a sense of caution in this individual, compelling him to withdraw. The Sea Dragon Palace, haha. As Yin Bei listened, he could scarcely contain his amusement. Just a moment ago, were you not intent on transforming the Dragon Maiden of the Sea Dragon Palace into a mere servant? How swiftly the tides have turned, compelling you to rely on the might of the Sea Dragon Palace. At this moment, Wan Er, standing nearby, felt an inexplicable flush of crimson on her cheeks. Casting a fierce glare at Yin Bei, Mo High found himself at a loss for words, regretting his hasty reveal. Enough. Engaging in discourse with a pest like you is a futile endeavor, Yin Bei remarked, a disinterest etched across his face, signaling his intent to cease this farce. Suddenly, the spiritual energy in the entire space erupted, coalescing into a terrifying golden hand. What are you planning to do? Mo High's face turned pale as he stumbled back several steps. Yet, no matter how he attempted to flee, he could not escape the grasp of that golden hand. Perish! Yin Bei clenched his palm fiercely. With a thunderous roar, it was as though something had exploded. Mo High's entire form disintegrated into a mist of blood. However, unnoticed by anyone, a wailing phantom octopus was swiftly captured within Yen Bei's grasp. He chose not to obliterate King Mo Hai immediately, opting instead to annihilate the corporeal shell while preserving his soul. After all, Yen Bei held a keen curiosity about the affairs of the ocean, particularly regarding the Sea Dragon Palace, a power he had never encountered on the mainland. He intended to extract some intriguing knowledge from Mo Hai. Wanner covered her mouth in astonishment. Although she had lost her cultivation, she could still sense the overwhelming energy emanating from Yen Bei. It was profoundly powerful, so much so that it left her breathless, a sensation she had only experienced in the presence of her father. At that moment, the villagers of the small fishing village erupted in cheers, singing praises in his honor. Many villagers, including the village chief, approached him, beseeching him to become the guardian deity of their humble abode. However, Yen Bei merely smiled and politely declined. He possessed his own identity and a multitude of people awaiting his return. He could not disappoint those who had longed for him. Suddenly, a graceful figure leaped into Yen Bei's embrace. "Wow, Xiaobai, you are truly formidable." It was Wanner, tightly clutching his arm, her face aglow with excitement. In a world that revered martial prowess above all, Yen Bei's strength had undoubtedly captivated this noble dragon maiden. Feeling the astonishing softness of her embrace and hearing her exclamation of admiration stirred a flurry of thoughts within Yen Bei. "Ahem, is that so? I suppose it's not so bad," he replied, awkwardly rubbing his nose. He attempted to extricate his arm from Wanner's grasp, but to no avail. A surge of emotion enveloped him, rendering him momentarily paralyzed. Observing Wanner before him, a bittersweet smile crept upon Yen Bei's lips. At that moment, she bore no resemblance to the aloof dragon maiden from before. Instead, she was entirely transformed into an affectionate little sprite. The following day, the crashing waves roared against the rocks, where two figures stood. "Xiaobai, are you truly going to leave?" Sister Wanner gazed at the young man before her with a heart full of reluctance, her expression tinged with melancholy. Yen Bei turned his head to look at the tearful figure, feeling somewhat at a loss. Indeed, it was time for him to depart, as many awaited his return. Yen Bei sighed softly, yearning for a tranquil life that seemed forever out of reach. Yet, often, events do not unfold in the manner one hopes. Many matters must be resolved by his own hand. Upon receiving an affirmative response, Sister Wanner broke into loud sobs. If the denizens of the Sea Dragon Palace were to witness this scene, one could only wonder what they would think. Who could have imagined that the lofty dragon princess of the East Sea would display such a vulnerable side? With an audacity that seemed to spring from nowhere, Sister Wanner leaped forward, pressing Yen Bei against the rocks, and then kissed him fiercely. Yen Bei lay on the stone, his eyes wide as saucers, his hands flailing in confusion. What was happening? Had he just been forcefully kissed? After a prolonged moment, as the fervor faded, Sister Wanner seemed to realize the impropriety of her actions, hastily releasing Yen Bei and sitting on the rock beside him. Neither spoke, and the atmosphere grew subtly charged. Sister Wanner glanced at her hands, her gaze dimming. After her dantian had shattered, she had retracted the once proud and imperious heart she possessed. She was no longer the exalted dragon princess, merely an ordinary person. Through a year of companionship, they had transitioned from strangers to familiar allies, and unbeknownst to Yen Bei, he had become an inseparable part of her life. She understood that someone of Yen Bei's formidable prowess would not remain in the small fishing village. Content to live as an ordinary man, lacking the capability to stay by his side, she could only offer her well wishes. Hoping for his safety and success on his journey, Yen Bei stood frozen, his silence concealing a pang of bitterness within. A year had passed in the blink of an eye, yet the moments they had shared were etched in his heart. Sister Wanner's tenderness and thoughtfulness had long since penetrated his soul. However, their relationship remained veiled, never breaking through the thin barrier that separated them. From this day forth, Yen Bei recognized that he would owe yet another debt of affection. After a while, Sister Wanner spoke, her eyes distant and her expression void of emotion. "I asked for nothing. I only hope you remember that someone in the small fishing village is waiting for you." Yen Bei opened his mouth, preparing to respond. But she interrupted him. "You should leave now." Her tone was indifferent, a stark contrast to her earlier demeanor. With that, she rose and began walking toward the small fishing village, as if everything that had transpired was now irrelevant to her. She did not wish to hear Yen Bei's words, nor did she dare to. She feared that she might succumb to tears once again, pleading for him to stay. Yen Bei reached out a hand, only to let it fall again. Sister Wanner continued on, acutely aware of the gaze upon her back, yet she could not bring herself to look back. Just as she was about to lose sight of the rocks, she finally turned for one last glance. Yet, that fleeting glance rendered her heart somewhat frigid. Upon the reef, that upright figure had long since vanished from sight. At this moment, Sister Wanner could no longer contain her sorrow and burst into tears, exclaiming, "Xiaobai, you scoundrel! I shall loathe you for all eternity." Her voice was filled with desolation, evoking a deep sense of pity in those who heard it. Just then, a voice brimming with mirth echoed through the air. To hate me for a lifetime? TSK, TSK, how terrifying. My name is not Xiao Bai, it is Yin Bei, a bottle of 9-turn golden elixir, capable of restoring your shattered dantian. I hope that when we meet again, you won't be weeping so pitifully. Moreover, your kissing skills are not too shabby. Sister Wanner was momentarily taken aback, but soon her expression brightened with joy as she searched for Yin Bei's figure. After a thorough search, however, she found no trace of him. Instead, she noticed a bottle on the ground, emanating a faint golden glow, inscribed with the words 9-turn golden elixir. The 9-turn golden elixir, a divine potion that only exists in legend, is said to possess the miraculous ability to revive the deceased and mend broken bones, as long as one draws breath. Consuming the 9-turn golden elixir would lead to immediate recovery or even a significant enhancement in cultivation. Wanner uncorked the bottle, and an incredibly rich fragrance of medicine wafted forth, revealing signs of revival in her shattered dantian. This astonished Wanner. Even with her experience, she could not discern the grade of this elixir. The mere aroma was sufficient to awaken her dantian, an occurrence that was nothing short of terrifying. Moreover, she discovered something even more astonishing. The bottle contained a total of 9 9-turn golden elixirs. Such a grand gesture made even the dragon maiden feel her breath quicken. Should just a single one of these appear in the outside world, it would likely incite a storm of bloodshed. These were treasures beyond the value of spirit stones, each one an invaluable gem. Yin Bei was a name of exquisite charm. At this moment, Sister Wanner cradled the 9-turn golden elixirs, her eyes sparkling with wonder. This mischievous lad even remarked on his kissing prowess. Was there such a thing to say to a girl? How utterly embarrassing. Her cheeks flushed with a rosy hue, revealing a shy demeanor. Subsequently, Sister Wanner clenched her delicate fists, as if having resolved something in her heart. A dreamy smile gracing her lips. If you claim my kissing skills are commendable, it seems I must ensure you experience them thoroughly next time. In the East Sea, beneath the waves, there exists another realm often spoken of, the underwater world. At this moment, within the depths of the ocean, a figure clad in white glided swiftly like a specter. It was Yin Bei, who had departed from the small fishing village. Initially intending to return directly to the eastern domain, he hesitated for a while before opting to continue his training, aspiring to elevate his cultivation to the half-saint level before making further plans. Soon, as Yin Bei moved, he arrived at a magnificent underwater palace, its entrance adorned with a plaque inscribed with the words Blackwater Hall. This Blackwater Hall is the stronghold of the forces that govern the Ink Sea. Now that the Ink Sea has been vanquished, Yin Bei naturally intends to collect a fee for his services, as he has nowhere else to go. Why not explore this underwater realm? Yin Bei subtly sensed the situation. The guards of the Blackwater Palace were exceptionally vigilant, yet their cultivation levels were relatively low, posing no obstacle to him. However, Yin Bei had no intention of alarming them, for the Blackwater Palace was a faction under the Sea Dragon Palace, and it was wiser to avoid unnecessary trouble. With a swift motion, he brushed his hand across his face, revealing a golden mask that adorned him. As his body quivered, a burly man with a dark complexion materialized before him. The primordial spirit of the Ink Sea in Yin Bei's hand reacted with intense agitation upon witnessing this transformation. Do not overreact. I merely wish to take a look around. Yin Bei reassured it with a faint smile, extending a finger to touch the primordial spirit of the Ink Sea, which prompted a torrent of memories to surge forth. Soon, Yin Bei emerged confidently from behind the rocks, striding boldly towards the Blackwater Palace. The guards at the palace, upon seeing Yin Bei, trembled and quickly bowed in utmost respect, exclaiming, "We greet you, my lord." Indeed, at that moment, Yin Bei bore an exact likeness to the Ink Sea. With the aid of the thousand-change ghost face, Yin Bei's appearance, physique, and even aura were indistinguishable from that of the Ink Sea. More alarmingly, he had completely assimilated the memories of the Ink Sea. It was unlikely anyone in the world could discern his ruse. "My lord, you have finally returned. Has the young master been found?" At that moment, a creature with a human head and octopus body swam out from the Blackwater Palace, glancing anxiously over Yin Bei's shoulder. Alas, little Jean was slain by that detestable group of humans. However, I have avenged him. Yin Bei feigned sorrow, shaking his head with a sigh. Little Jean referred to the golden octopus that perished at the hands of the Iron Tiger. It turned out that he was the young master being nurtured by the Blackwater Palace, which explained the furious wrath of the Ink Sea King, who had even taken matters into his own hands. Having said that, Yin Bei brushed past the crowd and made his way directly into the Blackwater Palace. Not far into his journey, he heard the sounds of lamentation and, upon looking, beheld several massive octopuses bound by chains, with a strikingly beautiful woman standing before them. Her exquisite features, porcelain skin, and voluptuous figure would have made her a paragon of beauty in the outside world. Yet, at that moment, her face was contorted with rage. Wielding a crimson-tinged spiritual whip, mercilessly lashing at the octopuses before her. Crack! Crack! Each strike elicited anguished cries from the bound octopuses, yet the woman seemed insatiable, wiping the sweat from her brow before continuing her relentless assault. Witnessing this scene, even Yin Bei was momentarily taken aback. He had never encountered such a fierce woman. As he delved into the memories of the Ink Sea, he suddenly realized that this stunning woman was none other than the Ink Sea's 18th concubine, Fire Spirit. Observing his current visage, Yin Bei's lips twitched. Goodness, I have truly thrust myself into a perilous situation. The thought of such a ferocious woman sent shivers down his spine. He found himself reminiscing about the gentle and tender Qiming. At this moment, all he desired was to swiftly acquire the treasures within the Blackwater Palace and make his exit. As Yin Bei was preparing to make his escape to retrieve the treasure, a delicate voice floated from a short distance away. The enchanting Huoling, wielding a long whip, gazed at him with deep affection. Chapter 165. A matter for the king to address my king. You have finally returned. Huoling looked at Yin Bei with an affectionate gaze. Hearing her voice, Yin Bei's lips twitched, and he sighed inwardly, though he had no intention of revealing his true identity at this moment. Yes, I have returned, Yin Bei replied nonchalantly, feigning disinterest. Huoling observed her husband with a slight furrow in her brow. As the favored concubine of the king of Imo, she was accustomed to his every whim. Yet today he appeared unusually aloof. However, she quickly surmised the cause. My king, what troubles you today? You seem quite agitated. Do you require my assistance to alleviate your distress? Huoling approached Yin Bei, her demeanor alluring, preparing to kneel and relieve his tension. Yin Bei was taken aback by this unexpected display. This seductive creature was far too forward, initiating such intimacy in this setting? No need. I have been experiencing a headache lately. Perhaps another time, he quickly interjected, grasping her as she began to kneel, mistakenly assuming he desired her to undress. Witnessing Huoling's actions, Yin Bei felt a pang of sympathy for her familiarity. It seemed she and Imo had indulged in such antics frequently. To stumble into such a blunder upon entering the Blackwater Palace left Yin Bei quite embarrassed. My king, did you not often say that when you have a headache, my services would remedy it instantly? Huoling, now kneeling, looked at Yin Bei in surprise, not expecting his refusal. Yin Bei's eyes widened. Did I say that? Yet, as he rifled through Imo's memories, he could not suppress a twitch at the corners of his mouth. Good heavens! He was almost stunned. He had not anticipated that the old lecher Imo had indeed made such a claim. Whenever Imo desired Huoling's services, he would assure her that her devoted attention would alleviate his headaches. Empathetic towards Imo, Huoling had wholeheartedly dedicated herself to his needs, resulting in the earlier scene. Ahem, today is different. I merely wish to rest. Yin Bei coughed lightly, suppressing his inner turmoil. With that, he turned and walked deeper into the Blackwater Palace. Huoling stood there, watching him retreat, a look of confusion etched on her face. For some reason, she felt that something was amiss with the king today, though she could not pinpoint what it was. After much contemplation, her complexion paled. Could it be that the king no longer held affection for her? Imo had never previously rejected Huoling's advances, yet today he had acted strangely. I must follow him and discover which vixen has ensnared his heart. Huoling clenched her delicate fist, her expression fierce, and seized the long whip from the ground, pursuing the direction in which Yin Bei had departed. Having evaded Huoling, Yin Bei exhaled a sigh of relief. He had nearly compromised his flawless form due to Imo's peculiarities, an experience fraught with peril. At that moment, he navigated the labyrinth of thoughts in his mind. Soon, he arrived before a magnificent palace, the treasury of the Blackwater Hall, where all the resources controlled by the Ink Sea were stored. Your Majesty. Upon seeing Yin Bei's arrival, all the octopus soldiers immediately bowed in respect. Open the treasury. I wish to retrieve some items. Yin Bei replied with a nod, his tone calm. However, the octopus soldiers hesitated and said, Your Majesty, the password. Password. Yin Bei furrowed his brow, rifling through the memories of the Ink Sea, but he found no indication that a password was required to enter the treasury. Could it be that the Ink Sea had sealed this part of his memory? The octopus soldiers, noticing Yin Bei's prolonged silence, became increasingly vigilant. If it were truly the aura and visage of their king, they would have acted by now. Your Majesty, without the password, no one may enter the treasury. A tall commander among the octopus soldiers stepped forward, eyeing Yin Bei with suspicion, his hand resting on the nearby war spear. Yin Bei's expression darkened. He did not expect to be thwarted by the Ink Sea in such a manner, which was truly infuriating. Just as he prepared to subdue the soldiers before him, a graceful figure approached rapidly from behind. Your Majesty, you should not wander about today. As you are unwell, Holing said, wielding a long whip as she reached Yanbei, entwining her arm with his. Having returned to the palace and finding that the king had not favored anyone else or entangled himself with vixens, her mood had significantly improved. She followed Yanbei to the treasury, only to find him blocked from entry. Seeing Holing arrive, Yanbei felt even more exasperated. It seemed he would have to incapacitate them all, including Holing. I wish to enter the treasury to retrieve a few items, but I momentarily forgot the password. My memory truly grows feeble with each passing year. As Yanbei spoke, he began to subtly channel his spiritual energy, preparing to incapacitate them all. His hand reached back, ready to strike Holing unconscious before dealing with the octopus soldiers. At that moment, however, Holing turned around, looking at Yanbei with concern. Your Majesty, I know you have been troubled by matters concerning Shao Jin these past few days, but you must not overexert yourself. Her sudden movement caused Yanbei's hand to freeze midair, and it slowly descended to her cheek. Yanbei gazed at Holing with deep affection. I understand. Thank you for your concern, my dear. Upon hearing this, Holing beamed with a sweet smile, then turned to the octopus soldiers and commanded, Open sesame, open the treasury. Your Majesty, please do not forget next time, Holing said, nestling against Yanbei's chest with a charming tone. Yanbei chuckled and nodded, surprised that he too would one day rely on charm. However, it was better to avoid unnecessary conflict. Being able to enter the treasury safely aligned perfectly with his desires. Thus, Yanbei strode confidently into the treasury, under the puzzled gazes of the octopus soldiers. Chapter 166. From now on, I shall be the king of the Ink Sea. As soon as Yanbei entered, he was utterly astonished by the dazzling array of treasures before him. Despite his extensive experience and knowledge, he found himself speechless at the sight before him. The treasures within this vault were truly overwhelming. The radiant glow emanating from the spirit stones illuminated the entire chamber as if it were daylight. Other divine weapons, protective armors, and rare artifacts were abundant. Everything one could possibly imagine was present. My lord, what is wrong? Are you still unwell? The voice of fire spirit jolted Yanbei from his stupor. He offered a faint smile, signaling that he was fine. He simply could not fathom how a mere sea beast king of the divine palace realm could possess such immense wealth. It was no wonder that people often remarked on the ocean's boundless resources. Today, Yanbei had witnessed it firsthand. If a sea beast king could be so affluent, what of the more formidable sea beasts? A bold idea began to take shape in his mind. Excitedly rubbing his hands together, he prepared to stow away these treasures into his storage pouch. However, he suddenly recalled the presence of a certain clingy companion beside him. This could pose a significant complication. With fire spirit nearby, if he were to collect the treasures in her sight, it would undoubtedly raise her suspicions. Yet, this unexpected windfall was one he intended to seize. My dear, what do you see over there? Yanbei pointed towards the distance, feigning surprise. Fire spirit turned her gaze in the direction he indicated, her expression one of confusion. Before she could react, a swift chop landed on her neck. Don't hold it against me. You were simply too much of a hassle. Yanbei remarked nonchalantly, swiftly transforming back into his true form. A resplendent mental mark materialized in the air. Yanbei pressed his finger to Fire Spirit's forehead, a smile gracing his lips. This mark had the power to control her mind. With its presence, her life and actions were entirely at his command, and she could not harm him in any way. Otherwise, her very soul would be obliterated. Freed from constraints, Yanbei began to raid the vault. As he examined the items, superior meteorite, exceptional extreme cold iron, heavenly tear sword, he meticulously placed them into his storage pouch. With each movement, the contents of the black water vault diminished rapidly. Although he might not have immediate use for these treasures, they could be left for the disciples of the Qingyan sect. Just as Yanbei was nearing the end of his plundering, he stumbled upon a dusty, ancient box devoid of any inscriptions. Could it possibly contain something of value? With eager anticipation, he opened the box, only to furrow his brow. Inside lay a key, imbued with the essence of time. Delving into the memories of the Ink Sea King, he quickly discerned the key's origin. This key had been acquired over 5,000 years ago by the Ink Sea King's grandfather during a deep-sea expedition. It was no ordinary object, seemingly the key to unlocking some hidden treasure. However, he possessed no recollection of what exactly it might unlock. What is the purpose of this object? Yanbei released the soul of the king of the Ink Sea. Feeling the terrifying aura emanating from Yanbei, the king trembled, saying, My lord, I do not know. Shortly after my grandfather left this key at the Blackwater Palace, he vanished without a trace. At that moment, the king's soul was in Yanbei's grasp, and every move made by Yanbei was visible to him. Under Yanbei's earnest gaze, he discerned that the king was not lying. Thus, he chose to say no more and retracted the king's soul. Holding the cold key, Yanbei sighed softly. Enough. He was a man of detachment. Since he could not ascertain the specific purpose of the key, he decided not to dwell on it and stored it directly within his storage ring. He then continued his sweep of the Blackwater treasury. Moments later, he had collected everything within the treasury. Meanwhile, the fire spirit, who lay nearby, finally began to awaken. As she opened her eyes, her thoughts were still somewhat muddled, struggling to regain clarity. Her memories were suspended at the very second before Yanbei had knocked her unconscious. Awake? A cold voice resonated, causing the fire spirit to shudder. She turned her head immediately, her gaze filled with terror as she beheld the man in white before her. You, who are you? Where's the king? With a sense of dread, she glanced around, realizing the absence of the king of the Ink Sea, and her heart plummeted to despair. The king? Am I not he? Yanbei replied with a faint smile, slightly turning to transform back into the appearance of the king of the Ink Sea. You are not. Who exactly are you? The fire spirit, not lacking in intelligence, recognized that this man was not the king. Yanbei resumed his true form and stated calmly, who I am is of no importance to you. You merely need to obey my commands, or else, snap. The fire spirit collapsed to the ground, writhing in agony as her soul was beset by excruciating pain, causing her entire body to curl and tremble. Fortunately, this torment lasted only a fleeting moment. I can grant you life or extinguish it with a mere thought. From now on, I am the king of the Ink Sea. Do you understand? Yanbei stated coolly. The fire spirit, drenched in cold sweat, gazed at Yanbei with terror. She could vaguely sense the overwhelming power of this man, far surpassing the king of the Ink Sea at the Divine Palace realm. I understand, my lord. From this day forth, you are the king of the Blackwater Palace. The fire spirit bit her lip and knelt on the ground, speaking with utmost reverence. Yanbei nodded in satisfaction. The ocean is abundant in resources, with spiritual energy far denser than that found on land. He planned to seek opportunities in the ocean to achieve a breakthrough to the semi-saint realm. To roam the sea, he required a suitable identity, and currently, the king of the Ink Sea was the most fitting role for him beneath the waves. The fire spirit, being the one closest to the king, was now under his control, ensuring that no one could unveil his true identity. This was also the reason he had not slain the fire spirit. Chapter 167, Breakthrough. Transcendental 9 heavens in the underwater realm of the Blackwater Palace. Possessing the memories of the king of the Ink Sea, Yanbei seamlessly assumed his place. The only one aware of this secret, the fire spirit, dared not expose it. Thus, 3 months swiftly passed. On this day, Yanbei was diligently cultivating in the Blackwater Palace as usual. Tomato, check in, he softly instructed the system within his consciousness. Ding. Congratulations, host, for successfully checking in. Reward, 1 piece of half-saint origin. Upon hearing the reward, Yanbei's expression shifted slightly. He quickly turned his gaze towards the system space, where a luminous orb emanating a powerful aura floated motionlessly. It was indeed the half-saint origin. A look of delight spread across Yanbei's face. After 3 months of arduous training, he had elevated his cultivation from the 6th layer of transcendence to the 8th layer. Just one more layer stood between him and the 9th layer, allowing him to challenge the half-saint realm. The arrival of this half-saint origin was akin to a timely downpour. Should he refine this half-saint origin, Yanbei was confident he could break through to the 9th layer of transcendence within a month, and perhaps even venture into the half-saint realm. He carefully extracted the half-saint origin from the system space, and in an instant, a terrifying wave of energy surged forth. Boom. Everything within the hall was instantly reduced to dust. Yanbei's expression changed, and he swiftly reached out. A resplendent golden hand coalesced, seizing the half-saint origin in his grasp, while simultaneously, the heavenly transformation technique activated, forcibly suppressing the overwhelming wave. Transcending to the saint realm, indeed, the half-saint origin was formidable, even without a wielder. It could unleash such terrifying fluctuations. Yanbei murmured to himself. However, his eyes sparkled with excitement. The more powerful the half-saint origin, the greater the benefits it would bestow upon him. Buzz. Yanbei cradled the half-saint origin in both hands and commenced the refining process. A month later, boom. A terrifying aura swept across the entire Blackwater Sea, startling all the sea beasts. The 9th layer of transcendence. Yanbei reveled in the surging power within him, a smile gracing his face. He had finally achieved his long-desired breakthrough to the 9th layer of transcendence, and he had only consumed a fraction of the half-saint origin. Continue. Yanbei stretched his limbs, preparing to refine further. Only by becoming a half-saint could he truly enter the ranks of the formidable in this world. Just then, a voice called from outside the hall. Report to the king. It was the guard stationed at the palace entrance. Yanbei furrowed his brow and replied indifferently. What is it? Report, your majesty, an envoy from the Sea Dragon Palace has arrived. The guard announced loudly. The Sea Dragon Palace? An envoy? Bei pondered, intrigued. Why would an envoy from the Sea Dragon Palace come to the Blackwater Palace? Could it be sent by Sister Wana? He had not forgotten that Sister Wana was the Dragon Maiden of the Sea Dragon Palace. Did she surmise his identity after he helped her restore her Danteon? After all, the King of the Ink Sea was slain before her eyes. With her intellect, deducing that he had impersonated the King of the Ink Sea should not be difficult. As the hall doors opened, Bei stepped out and addressed the guard. Did the envoy from the Sea Dragon Palace specify their purpose? This subordinate does not know. The guard replied, kneeling and bowing his head. Bei sighed softly, slightly furrowing his brow. Very well, let us go and see. Regardless of the envoy's intentions, he needed to ascertain their purpose. Meanwhile, outside the Blackwater Palace, an elderly man and an ambitious young man stood quietly together. Master, I have heard that the great octopus of the Blackwater Palace possesses merely the strength of the Divine Palace. Why have we come to seek him? The young man inquired, his expression filled with confusion. The elder smiled softly. Your Highness, though the Sea King possesses the strength of the Divine Palace, he commands this vast ocean, with a legion of 1,000,000 soldiers at his disposal. 1,000,000 soldiers? The youth scoffed, in the presence of true power. That is but a mere gesture. He continued, I believe we should take our leave. There is no need to waste time here with the impending opening of the underwater ruins. However, the elder shook his head. While the world knows of the impending opening of the underwater ruins, few understand how to unlock them. Master, do you know how? The young man asked, his brow furrowed in curiosity. I stumbled upon a text in the Dragon Palace that hinted at the method of unlocking, the elder replied, stroking his beard with a smile. Oh, what must one do to unlock them? The youth's interest was piqued. The elder did not hesitate to reveal, a blood sacrifice of 1,000,000 souls. What? The young man's face paled, his eyes wide with horror as he gazed at the elder. A blood sacrifice. 1,000,000 souls? He realized why his master had traveled such a great distance to the Blackwater Sea. It was to compel the Sea King to mobilize his forces for the blood sacrifice, thereby unlocking the underwater ruins. The elder maintained his smile, nodding gently. In our underwater realm, a mere 1,000,000 souls are but a speck of dust. Your Highness, you have a long journey ahead. The young man fell silent. At that moment, the sound of flowing water filled the air. The messenger from the Dragon Palace has arrived. I beg your pardon for not welcoming you properly. Please, come inside. Bei, his face adorned with a broad smile, flew out from the Blackwater Palace and instantly appeared before the two men. No need for that. Are you the Sea King? The elder inquired with a wave of his hand, smiling at Bei. Bei paused, slightly taken aback. Why do you ask that? Does this old man suspect something? He pondered. Yet, that should not be the case. He sensed that the elder's cultivation was merely at the threshold of the extraordinary realm, making it impossible for him to see through his disguise. Surely, the Sea King, appointed by the Dragon Palace, cannot be impersonated, Bei jested, clasping his hands in mock reverence. The elder regarded Bei with a smile, but internally, he was puzzled. As a messenger of the Dragon Palace, most would regard him with trepidation, yet while the Sea King appeared obsequious, the elder could discern a lack of true reverence in his eyes. Nevertheless, he did not dwell on it. After all, in the absence of a tiger, the monkeys claimed the throne. Perhaps the Sea King had grown overly proud during his prolonged stay in the Blackwater Sea. Chapter 168. The Aura of Lonqueway. I have come here specifically to convey an important message, the elder stated calmly. Bei feigned surprise. Oh, what instructions does the esteemed messenger have? The elder's smile faded, his expression turning grave. Sea King, heed my command. At your service. Bei replied, his demeanor becoming serious. The underwater ruins are about to open. I command you to assemble all the forces of the Blackwater Sea within 3 days and stand by at the Dragon's Abyss. The elder declared with authority. The underwater ruins, the Dragon's Abyss? Bei began to delve into the memories of the Mo Hai Wang, and in an instant, he uncovered pertinent information. The Zhuang Long Yuan, located approximately 100,000 miles from here, is characterized by a colossal chasm stretching for thousands of miles, reminiscent of the celestial canopy, and is commonly referred to as the Zhuang Long Yuan. According to legend, this was once the dwelling place of an ancient true dragon, imbued with unparalleled opportunities. At the heart of this chasm lies the underwater ruins, enveloped in numerous formidable restrictions, which only open once every millennium. It is said that someone once obtained a miraculous treasure within these ruins, rising to prominence, and ultimately becoming a formidable ruler of the seas. Consequently, many powerful sea clans have set forth towards the underwater ruins. However, where there are opportunities, there are inevitably risks. The Zhuang Long Yuan is a place of considerable terror, akin to a forbidden zone of life. Unless the restrictions dissipate, no matter the level of one's cultivation, attempting to breach the Zhuang Long Yuan would result in certain death. There was once a sage-level powerhouse from the mainland who sought to leverage his extraordinary strength to challenge the Zhuang Long Yuan in pursuit of treasures from the underwater ruins. Yet, as he ventured merely 1,000 meters into the chasm, he seemingly encountered some ominous and mysterious force, letting out a dreadful scream before plummeting uncontrollably to the abyss. Never to be seen again. What? Does the Mo Hai Wang have any objections to my command? The elder's gaze turned icy upon noticing Yin Bei's silence. A mere sea beast king of the divine palace realm, if not for the blood sacrifice of 100,000 souls, he would scarcely deign to acknowledge him. Should the Mo Hai Wang dare to disobey, he would not hesitate to obliterate him. Sensing the elder's chilling aura, Yin Bei quickly regained his composure. And no, I merely lost my train of thought. I shall obey your orders. Summon all troops from the Blackwater Sea immediately. We shall depart for the Zhuang Long Yuan in 3 days. Yin Bei tossed a command token to the awaiting octopus general. Observing this, the elder revealed a smile. Rest assured, the Sea Dragon Palace will not neglect your rewards. Thank you, my lord, Yin Bei replied with a sycophantic bow. Please prepare a banquet to welcome the envoy. No need. I have pressing matters to attend to. I shall take my leave first. Await the arrival of the Blackwater army at the Zhuang Long Yuan in 3 days. The elder chuckled, waving his hand as he prepared to depart. At that moment, the young man who had been silently standing behind the elder fixed his gaze intently on Yin Bei. Master, wait. The youth stepped forward. The elder looked at him with some confusion, unsure of the situation but refraining from further inquiry. The youth approached Yin Bei directly, scrutinizing him closely. Yin Bei felt a twinge of curiosity. Does this young gentleman have something to say? The youth continued to regard Yin Bei with intense focus, studying him from head to toe. After a prolonged silence, he finally spoke. You exude the aura of a dragon. You have met her. Dragon aura? A dragon? Yin Bei furrowed his brow slightly. There is no need for concealment. I can sense her presence, and it is quite potent. It seems you have frequent interactions. The youth circled around Yin Bei with a mocking smile, his eyes gleaming with excitement. I do not comprehend what you are implying. Yin Bei shook his head in response. At this moment, the elder gazed intently at the youth, his expression growing serious. Your Highness, is that truly the case? The mention of Your Highness made Yin Bei steal a glance at the young man. Realizing that only the esteemed heir of the Sea Dragon Palace could be addressed in such a manner, the youth nodded affirmatively. Indeed, this individual bears the aura of Long Kuei. Long Kuei's aura. What? The elder trembled at the revelation, swiftly descending before Yin Bei, and with a grand gesture, sealed the space around him entirely. The youth's eyes sparkled with excitement as he advanced step by step towards Yin Bei. After hiding for so many years, I have finally found you. Now, divulge her whereabouts, and out of consideration for your remaining usefulness, I shall spare your life. Long Kuei was the true name of Sister Warner. Although unaware of the youth's intentions, it was evident that his motives were far from benevolent. It appeared that the Sea Dragon Palace was not entirely united in purpose. I do not comprehend your words. Should I mobilize my forces, we might have a discussion, but beyond that, I am of no assistance, Yin Bei replied coolly. So you choose to be obstinate? If you do not reveal Long Kuei's whereabouts today, I shall ensure that not a single soul in the Blackwater Sea shall find peace. The youth's body gradually levitated, transforming into a colossal dragon stretching hundreds of feet as it soared through the ocean, emanating a terrifying aura that shook the heavens and earth. What was initially presumed to be a true dragon turned out to be merely a long worm. Yin Bei regarded the immense creature before him with a sense of disillusionment. It seemed the hope of consuming true dragon flesh was utterly dashed. Upon hearing these words, the expressions of everyone present shifted dramatically. It is well known that the mightiest creature of the sea is the true dragon. However, attaining the form of a true dragon is no simple feat. A serpent transforms into a python after 10 years, a python into a giant python after 50 years, a giant python into a flood dragon after a century, a flood dragon into a writhing dragon after a millennium, and only after 10,000 years can a writhing dragon hope to become a true dragon. Sister Warner, of noble lineage, possessed the bloodline of a true dragon. Thus, she was born a dragon. The youth, with a lesser bloodline, was fervently fixated on finding Sister Warner, for he sought to drink the blood of a true dragon. By doing so, he aimed to refine his own body and transform from a writhing dragon into a true dragon. Becoming a true dragon had been the youth's lifelong aspiration. For even as a writhing dragon, he could not hold his head high in the presence of true dragons. Each encounter with a true dragon filled him with a sense of inferiority, the oppressive weight of bloodline, making him feel profoundly uncomfortable. In the depths of the ocean, true dragons are exceedingly rare, and each one is extraordinarily powerful. He stood no chance against any true dragon he might confront. Long Kuei, however, was the only true dragon among the undersea lineage that had been injured and rendered powerless. Naturally, the youth set his sights on her. After all, true dragons were scarcely found. Should he slay another true dragon to obtain its blood, it would likely lead to his swift demise at the hands of the dragon clan the very next day. Longkwe, on the other hand, could no longer cultivate and had become a discarded pawn within the clan, overlooked and disregarded. Even if the youth were to slay her, the most he might face from the dragon clan would be a reprimand. At this moment, upon hearing Yanbei refer to him as a long worm, it undoubtedly struck a nerve within him, igniting a furious rage. You seek death. Even if you reveal the whereabouts of Longkwe today, there is no chance of survival. Though he is a dragon in form, he still belongs to the true dragon lineage, and whenever this matter is mentioned, it evokes in him a sense of inferiority. He despises this feeling immensely. Thus, the king of Ink Sea must perish today. Roar! The dragon, embodied as a youth, surged fiercely towards Yanbei, causing the surrounding waters to boil instantly, and the entire Black Water Palace collapsed under this terrifying pressure. Shadows soared from within the palace, gazing in horror at the dragon advancing towards Yanbei. My lord, to them, under such overwhelming force, the king of Ink Sea had no chance of survival whatsoever. The elder opened his mouth, intending to dissuade the young lord. After all, slaying the king of Ink Sea would significantly impact the blood sacrifice for the underwater relics. However, he ultimately held his tongue. Although the young lord was his disciple, he possessed a fiery temperament, quick to act on grievances. Given that events had reached this critical juncture, the king of Ink Sea was doomed. In the end, it would only be under the banner of the Sea Dragon Palace that the Blackwater Palace would be commanded to mobilize. But such an action would stain the reputation of the Sea Dragon Palace among the many sea tribes with an image of brutality and bloodshed. The significance of the king of Ink Sea leading an expedition versus that of the Sea Dragon Palace commanding one was entirely different. Yet, it was too late to reverse the course of events. As for the whereabouts of Longkwe, he harbored little concern. After the young lord dispatched the king of Ink Sea, he would imprison his soul and utilize the soul-searching technique to unveil all truths. Contemplating these matters, a faint smile graced the elder's face as he watched the dragon charge towards the king of Ink Sea. Was it erroneous to call you a longworm? Yanbei regarded the approaching dragon with a cold smirk. Today, if there is no dragon meat to feast upon, then this creature shall suffice for a toothsome morsel. He understood that the situation could not be resolved peacefully, thus he no longer intended to conceal his strength. Boom! Suddenly, an immensely powerful aura erupted from Yanbei, causing the very space around him to rumble. He clenched his hand tight into the void. The void trembled, and a brilliant golden hand materialized instantly, spanning hundreds of feet. In the presence of this colossal hand, the dragon appeared as a mere larva, crushed tightly within his grasp. Roar! Captured by Yanbei, the dragon thrashed wildly in his grip. Yet, Yanbei showed no mercy, swiftly turning his hand to suppress. Boom! Before the astonished gazes of the onlookers, the dragon was directly pressed to the seabed by the golden hand, rendered immobile. How dare you plot against me? I shall ensure that all within the Blackwater Sea perish. The dragon flailed desperately at the seabed, still unaware of Yanbei's terrifying prowess. Believing that the opponent had employed some secret technique to ensnare him, it sought to rise, but the weight of the hand pressing down felt like 100,000 mountains, rendering it breathless. No matter how it struggled, it was in vain. The king of Ink Sea. How could this be possible? He actually subdued the young lord. This scene left countless onlookers aghast, their eyes widening in terror as they turned to Yanbei. Amongst the ruins of the Blackwater Palace, the fire spirit, witnessing this spectacle, paled in fear. She realized that she had perhaps still underestimated this impostor, the king of the Ink Sea. The young master possessed the cultivation of the four extremes, yet he effortlessly subdued him. Who exactly was he? Why was he so terrifying? Before anyone could ponder further, Yanbei stepped forward, and in an instant, he vanished from sight. The next moment, he appeared atop the head of the dragon. At this juncture, a mere flick of his wrist would cause the dragon's skull to explode. How dare you? The elder, watching from a distance, was utterly astounded. Everything had transpired too rapidly. So swift that even he, an extraordinary being, failed to react in time to the young master being suppressed. Yanbei regarded the approaching elder without even lifting an eyelid. And with a casual wave of his hand, boom, the elder was sent flying as if his strings had been severed, crashing into a reef at the seabed. This scene left countless members of the Blackwater Palace in shock. They were unaware of the true strength of this envoy from the Sea Dragon Palace. But based on the fact that the young master referred to him as teacher, his power could not be insignificant. Yet even so, he had still been struck down by the king of the Ink Sea. The members of the Blackwater Palace gazed in astonishment at the figure standing atop the dragon's head, swallowing hard. Was this truly their king? How could he be so ridiculously powerful? Cough, cough. How is this even possible? The elder spat out a mouthful of blood, his eyes wide with disbelief as he beheld the king of the ink sea standing over the young master. He recalled having specifically reviewed the records from the Sea Dragon Palace, which indicated that the king of the ink sea was merely a beast king of the Divine Palace realm. However, what had just transpired shattered his understanding. Divine Palace realm? To suppress the young master with a mere slap and to inflict severe injury with a wave of his hand? Who recorded this? I swear I will make you pay when I return. There is nothing impossible. None of you shall leave here today, Yanbei remarked with an indifferent expression, simultaneously unleashing his full aura. Boom. An overwhelming presence akin to divine might enveloped the area, rendering everyone unable to move an inch. Having chosen to reveal himself, he had no intention of allowing them to escape. Everyone present today was destined to perish. Chapter 170. Slaying the Dragon. Young master feeling the terrifying wave of power emanating from Yanbei, the elder's face turned pale with horror. This aura, it rivals that of the palace lord. The formidable energy radiating from the king of the ink sea was something he had only encountered with the palace lord of the Sea Dragon Palace. But how could this be possible? The palace lord was a semi-holy level powerhouse. Could it be that this king of the ink sea was a semi-holy being? With this thought, the elder's heart plummeted. At this moment, the dragon young master beneath Yanbei's feet also regained consciousness, his enormous pupils filled with dread. This aura had surpassed his limits. Blood began to seep from his body. If Yanbei applied further pressure, he wouldn't even need to make a move. The mere presence alone would be enough to slay him. I am the young master of the Sea Dragon Palace. If you kill me, you will face the wrath of the entire Sea Dragon Palace. The dragon howled in agony, his expression twisted in pain. He attempted to depart from the Sea Dragon Palace, instilling trepidation within the Qiulong clan. The elderly figure in the distance, upon hearing these words, instantly turned pale, his heart sinking into despair. The aura of the King of Ink Sea was no less formidable than that of the Palace Master. Such a powerful being would hardly fear the Sea Dragon Palace. If there were no threats, there might still be a glimmer of hope for survival. But now, with the young lord's statement, it seemed that the last vestige of life had been extinguished. Indeed, the Sea Dragon Palace? Yanbei subtly restrained his aura, casting his gaze downwards at the Qiulong. Yet, the young lord of Qiulong evidently misunderstood the situation, believing Yanbei to be intimidated by the Sea Dragon Palace. Release me, and I shall treat today's incident as if it never occurred. Otherwise, my ancestors of the Qiulong clan will surely not let you off. Listening to the threats of the young lord, Yanbei chuckled softly. It appears you are wholly oblivious to the current reality. My ancestors of Qiulong are at the pinnacle of the extraordinary realm. Before the young lord could finish his words, bang! Yanbei raised his right foot and brought it down with great force. How tiresome. The one thing I detest most is threats. With a cold snort, Yanbei's gaze turned icy as he looked at the young lord beneath him. The massive form of the young lord of Qiulong struggled incessantly beneath the sea, nearly fainting from the overwhelming pressure. Yanbei, observing the young lord's futile struggles, could not be bothered to engage in further banter. After dealing with these individuals, he still had to refine the half-saint's essence. He then opened his hand, preparing to deliver a fatal blow to the young lord. The elder, witnessing this scene from afar, turned ashen. Stop. Would Yanbei heed his plea? No. The young lord of Qiulong, sensing the terrifying energy behind him, began to struggle violently. Just as Yanbei's hand was about to descend upon his head, boom! The void trembled, and a crimson light erupted from the young lord, revealing a formidable figure emerging from his brow. It was the spiritual manifestation left within the young lord by his ancestor. The young lord had been saved. The elder, witnessing this spectacle, was instantly filled with elation. The ancestor of Qiulong, at the peak of the extraordinary 9th level, upon intervening, would surely turn the tide of danger. Who dares to harm my Qiulong? The figure emitted a voice of authority, yet before the words could fully escape his lips, slap. Yanbei, growing impatient, extended his hand and effortlessly shattered it. The spiritual manifestation residing within the young lord of Qiulong burst apart. What? The elder, witnessing the annihilation of the ancestor's spiritual form with a mere slap, was rendered speechless, his eyes nearly bulging out. The spiritual form of the ancestor possessed 70% of his true strength, and it was obliterated with such ease? What kind of monster had he provoked? The expression of joy upon the young lord's face had yet to materialize before it morphed into sheer horror. Boom! Yanbei's palm descended, leaving him no chance to react. With a scream, the young lord's violent struggles gradually ceased. The current young lord of the Qiulong clan met his tragic end before the Blackwater Palace. The surrounding sea beasts, witnessing the scene, knelt in terror, trembling uncontrollably. The contemporary prodigy of the Qiulong clan, the young lord of the Sea Dragon Palace, had perished. The elder, observing this spectacle, was filled with rage, blood spewing from his mouth. You dare to kill the young lord? I shall fight you to the end. He realized that surviving today was beyond his grasp, and thus resolved to fight with abandon. A colossal dragon, stretching thousands of zhong, materialized before the onlookers, its terrifying aura tearing through the heavens and earth, sending shivers through all life in the surrounding sea. The size of the dragon, compared to that of the young dragon lord, was incomparably vast. Another long serpent appeared. But your flesh is far too aged. I have no interest in it, Yanbei remarked, shaking his head at the manifestation of the elder's true form. The elder, transformed into a dragon, radiated determination and fury. Even if I cannot defeat you, I shall drag you down with me. Boom. A dreadful energy surged within the elder as he prepared for self-detonation. Aware that he was no match for the Sea King before him, he resolved to explode his own body, intending to take Yanbei along to the grave. The energy reserves within a being of extraordinary realm are indeed formidable, and this dragon was no exception. His self-detonation would likely leave no living creature within 1,000 miles unscathed. Yanbei regarded the charging elder dragon, intent on mutual destruction, with an unflinching gaze. With a slight raise of his hand, a magnificent cauldron surged forth from the void. The cauldron of all Mother Chi, descend. Boom. The moment the cauldron arrived, the void collapsed, and all beings within the black water sea felt an unparalleled aura erupt from the depths, the essence of the great Tao swirling chaotically, as if this space-time was being suppressed, freezing all things in place. No, the elder dragon let out a woeful cry, its immense form being drawn into the cauldron of all Mother Chi. At this juncture, Yanbei's strength had ascended to the 9th level of the extraordinary realm. Not even this elder dragon, nor a demigod, could withstand his might. Thus, the elder dragon could not endure even a breath's time before being decisively subjugated by Yanbei. At this moment, the entire sea fell into an eerie silence, all things rendered terrifyingly still. The people of the Blackwater Palace gazed in shock at Yanbei, standing not far away. Is this truly their king? He is so powerful. Not even the extraordinary can rival him. Long live the king! Long live the king! A voice echoed from an unknown source, and soon the entire assembly began to chant. The terror Yanbei instilled in them was profound. Yet, Yanbei paid them no heed. Clean this place up. I require time for closed-door cultivation. With that, he collected the corpse of the young dragon lord into the tomato space and transformed into radiant fragments of light, vanishing from sight. Chapter 171, Mind Sealing. Azure World in the Blackwater Treasury, a structure of formidable construction, it was the only edifice within the Blackwater Palace that had not collapsed. Yanbei returned here directly. He retrieved the cauldron of all Mother Chi, where the elder dragon's body had coiled into a small serpent within the cauldron. Yanbei extended his hand and extracted it. With the Blackwater Palace nearly destroyed and his identity exposed, it was time to contemplate his next destination. However, the events of today had unveiled an intriguing prospect, the underwater ruins. It was rumored that the center of the dragon's fall abyss harbored supreme opportunities. Yanbei was already ablaze with inner fervor. Although he possessed the memories of the Sea King, his understanding remained limited, leaving him only partially informed about the myriad matters of the vast ocean. Thus, after vanquishing the young dragon lord, he deliberately spared the old dragon, hoping to extract information regarding the underwater ruins from him. Cease your pretense of ignorance and divulge all that you know about the underwater relics. I might consider sparing your life, Yanbei remarked with a subtle smile, gazing at the old dragon, which had shrunk to a fraction of its former size. The old dragon glared at Yanbei with venomous resentment. He was decidedly defiant. Do not harbor delusions. You will learn nothing from me. Now a captive, he had no desire to continue living. He recognized that the man before him was a ruthless killer, and even if he revealed everything about the underwater ruins, this fiend would undoubtedly dispose of him regardless. Yanbei, witnessing this defiance, smiled slightly. I did not expect you to possess such tenacity. Are you quite certain you will not speak? The old dragon closed his eyes and fell silent, adopting a stance akin to a stubborn pig indifferent to boiling water. With his remaining strength, he had sealed his soul and consciousness. Should any force attempt to breach his mind, it would trigger an explosion that would obliterate both the intruding energy and himself. Even a saint's soul would suffer significant damage from such a cataclysm. There was no chance of extracting any information from him. Yanbei was keenly aware of the old dragon's maneuvers. The old dragon was indeed obstinate. You may kill or torture me at your whim, but I shall never divulge any information. Faced with this scene, Yanbei abandoned any pretense of persuasion. Tired of idle chatter, he pointed a finger at the old dragon's forehead. Instantly, both figures vanished from their location. In the azure sky continent, Yanbei brought the old dragon directly into the realm of the azure sky. What is this place? Upon entering, the old dragon sensed something amiss. The laws governing this realm were entirely different from those of the outside world, as if he had stepped into an alternate dimension. Welcome to my world, Yanbei smiled faintly. It is intriguing that you, my enemy, have entered this domain. Your world? The old dragon trembled, his gaze fixated on Yanbei, his face paling in terror as he stumbled backward. In that moment, Yanbei radiated an overwhelming aura, a terrifying presence circulating around him, accompanied by powerful laws of order, akin to a divine monarch from ancient times, making it impossible to meet his gaze. You. The old dragon, sensing the terrifying energy emanating from Yanbei, recoiled in fear, collapsing to the ground. He had never encountered such a horrifying presence. It transcended anything he could comprehend. Even a saint would likely be unworthy of comparison to the Yanbei before him. He could not fathom the sudden and dreadful transformation that had occurred. Yanbei, of course, understood the old dragon's astonishment. The Azure Sky continent was a gift from the Azure Emperor, and within this realm, he was the absolute sovereign. Unless a force transcending this world descends upon it, he is indeed an invincible entity, with the power of life and death over anyone resting upon his thoughts. The reason he brought the old dragon here is due to the sealing power within his sea of consciousness. Indeed, this old dragon is exceedingly treacherous, attempting to perish alongside him through a self-destructive explosion of the sea of consciousness. Yet how could he wish for such an outcome? Unseal the sea of consciousness, Yanbei said to the old dragon with a calm demeanor. What dream are you having? Even if you are powerful. The old dragon roared with a face twisted in fury, but in the next moment, his expression changed drastically. Crack! The sound of shackles breaking echoed. As the sealing power he had painstakingly established dissipated into thin air, he gazed at Yanbei in terror, bewildered by what had transpired, unable to comprehend why he had released the sealing power within his sea of consciousness. I will not allow you to succeed, even in death, the old dragon declared, raising his hand to end his own life. Yet, as soon as his hand was lifted, it froze in midair, immobile. The old dragon's face paled. No matter how hard he struggled, his hand would not obey his command. You are not human. You are a ghost. You are a demon. The old dragon screamed in terror. Everything unfolding was so bizarre that it sent shivers through his very soul. Yanbei smiled softly. In the Azure realm, he was the sole sovereign, commanding the very fabric of existence. He extended his hand and extracted a luminous orb from the old dragon's sea of consciousness. This orb contained the entirety of the old dragon's memories. Instead of refining it, he chose to examine it directly. Soon, he uncovered information regarding the underwater ruins. The method to unlock the underwater ruins requires a blood sacrifice of 1,000,000 lives. Upon reading the old dragon's memories describing the underwater ruins, Yanbei was instantly filled with rage. No wonder the old dragon had traveled tens of thousands of miles to the Blackwater Sea, seeking out a mere beast king of the divine palace like him to lead an assault on the dragon abyss. Although Yanbei had felt something was amiss at the time, he had not probed further. Yet, he had never anticipated that this old dragon was so deranged, intending to offer the soldiers of the entire Blackwater Sea as a blood sacrifice that amounted to 1,000,000 lives. While Yanbei had traversed this path, unknowingly stepping upon countless corpses, he could never commit such a heinous act of sacrificing 1,000,000 lives. Fortunately, he had accessed the old dragon's memories. Otherwise, had he been the one to send these million souls to their doom, he would be engulfed in profound guilt. He continued to peruse the old dragon's recollections about the underwater ruins. The old dragon had once discovered detailed records regarding the underwater ruins in the texts of the Sea Dragon Palace, which proved invaluable to Yanbei. As he flipped through the memories, a key-like symbol within the ancient tome caught his attention. What is this? Yanbei pondered, gazing at the key symbol in the old dragon's memory, suddenly recalling something. A resplendent golden key materialized in his hand. Comparing it with the symbol, his expression shifted in astonishment. The two aligned perfectly. Could this key be connected to the underwater ruins? Yanbei gazed intently at the golden key in his hand, his brow furrowed in contemplation. The memories of the old dragon did not mention this key, yet it was unmistakably identical to the one depicted in the patterns. After pondering for a moment, he carefully stowed the key away and departed from the Azure Sky continent. As for the malevolent old dragon, Yanbei effortlessly reduced him to a cloud of blood mist, showing no interest in further engagement. Upon returning to the Blackwater Treasury, he walked straight out. With the Blackwater Palace now in ruins, he had no intention of lingering any longer. The precise purpose of the key remained unknown, but it was undoubtedly connected to the underwater ruins. Therefore, he resolved to journey to the Dragon's Fall Abyss in hopes of uncovering something significant. This would also provide an opportunity to refine the essence of the semi-saint and strive for a breakthrough into the semi-saint realm. Meanwhile, on the distant shores of the ocean, stood a realm of towering palaces, each crafted from crystal, radiating an enchanting brilliance at every moment. This was the most formidable force beneath the Sea Dragon Palace. At this moment, deep within the Sea Dragon Palace, a shocking aura erupted. Who dares to destroy my spiritual form and slay the prodigy of the Qiulong clan? I shall tear you to shreds. The terrifying sound waves reverberated through the heavens and earth, instilling fear into countless sea creatures who looked up in terror. A colossal red dragon, stretching thousands of feet in length, circled above the Sea Dragon Palace, emanating an overwhelming aura of dread that sent many sea denizens into a state of panic. It was none other than the ancestor of the Qiulong. What could have transpired to incite such fury? Many formidable beings within the Sea Dragon Palace gazed in astonishment at the massive red dragon. Soon, news spread from the palace. The esteemed young lord of the Qiulong had just been slain, alongside a transcendent elder. This revelation sent shockwaves throughout the Sea Dragon Palace, causing an uproar among the sea tribes. The young lord's demise and the elder's fall had not occurred in many years. Moreover, it was rumored that the one responsible for their deaths was a mere sea beast king of the Divine Palace realm. Could it be that the beast king from the Blackwater Sea was so powerful as to slay even a transcendent elder? Such a barren sea region producing such a formidable figure was truly astonishing. In no time, the name Mo Hai Wang echoed throughout the entirety of the Sea Dragon Palace. Concurrently, the incident ignited a collective fury among the palace's higher-ups. It was rumored that the enraged Qiulong ancestor had departed the Sea Dragon Palace in pursuit of Mo Hai Wang, intent on avenging the young lord. Within one of the palaces in the Sea Dragon Palace, a blue-clad woman set down her ink brush, a smile illuminating her face as she admired her recent masterpiece. The painting depicted a striking young man in white, standing with an air of elegance, his thick black hair cascading around him, exuding an ethereal grace as if descended from the heavens. "Miss, the man you painted is truly handsome," remarked a besotted maid beside her. The blue-clad woman gazed at the figure in the painting, her expression radiating warmth and delight. "Indeed, I too find him quite attractive. Do you know him, miss?" The maid inquired eagerly. She initially believed that this was merely a figment of the young lady's imagination. However, the young lady's demeanor suggested otherwise. It seemed they were acquainted, and not only that, he owed her something. The woman in blue sighed softly. "Forget it. It's no use mentioning it." Just then, a flurry of footsteps echoed from outside. Miss, a grave matter has arisen." Another maid rushed in hastily. The woman in blue's expression turned serious. "Xiao Dai? What has happened? Has that scoundrel Qiulong discovered my return?" "No, not at all. It's an extraordinary piece of news," the maid replied, catching her breath, her face alight with excitement. "An extraordinary piece of news?" The woman in blue furrowed her brows, puzzled as to what could elate Xiao Dai so. "Could it be that my father has emerged from his retreat? Miss, we no longer need to remain in this secluded hall. Just now, I overheard outside that the scoundrel Xiao Zun has been slain." Xiao Dai exclaimed, her excitement palpable as she danced about. "Xiao Zun has been slain." The woman in blue's expression shifted, a hint of shock crossing her features. "Xiao Dai, are you certain of what you speak? The entire Hailong Palace is aware. Xiao Zun's soul lamp has just extinguished." Xiao Dai continued. Upon hearing this, a smile graced the woman in blue's face. That braggart must have offended some significant figure during his escapades. It is only fitting that he met his demise. Indeed, this woman in blue was none other than the true dragon maiden, Long Kuei, whom Xiao Zun had long sought to capture to extract her dragon blood. After acquiring the 9-turn golden pill from Yin Bei in the small fishing village, Long Kuei had successfully restored her shattered dantian. Once her strength was regained, she sought to find Yin Bei to accompany him. However, the vastness of the sea left her with no means to locate him, and ultimately, she returned to Hailong Palace in silence. Knowing her father remained in seclusion, she refrained from revealing her restored powers, opting instead to dwell quietly in this secluded hall. To avoid any calamity resulting from the exposure of her recovery, she planned to announce it only after her father's retreat concluded. Now, with her father still in seclusion, news of Xiao Zun's fall had emerged. Xiao Zun had always intended to capture her to siphon her true dragon blood, a fact Long Kuei was acutely aware of. Even her journey to the small fishing village had been to evade Xiao Zun's relentless pursuit. After all, the Hailong Palace was not necessarily a sanctuary while her father remained in seclusion. "Is there any word on who exactly killed him?" Long Kuei inquired. Xiao Dai pondered for a moment. "Miss, how could I forget? The slayer has caused quite a stir within the palace. It is said that the one who killed Xiao Zun is a sea beast king named Mo Hai." At this revelation, Long Kuei's body stiffened momentarily. Disbelief etched on her face as she stared at Xiao Dai. You say it was who? Unaware of her mistress's reaction, Xiao Dai continued, Mo Hai. They say he possesses only the cultivation of the divine palace realm, yet he managed to slay both Xiao Zun and an extraordinary elder. Mo Hai. Long Kuei's slender form quivered, her gaze drawn towards the horizon. During her time in the small fishing village, she had witnessed Yan Bei slay Mo Hai with her own eyes. The enchanting visage of Long Kuei instantly illuminated with joy. Mo Hai Wang. I never anticipated that you had not departed. She had already deduced the identity of Mo Hai Wang. Who else could possess the prowess to vanquish the young master and the extraordinary elders, if not him? Chapter 173. A place unrecorded by history. After departing from the Blackwater Sea, Yan Bei finally arrived at his destination after 3 days of arduous travel. Before him lay an immense chasm, stretching thousands of miles like an insurmountable divide. This place was shrouded in darkness, the entire ocean exuding a profoundly oppressive aura, with scarcely a living creature daring to wander here. This was the Dragon's Fall Abyss, renowned in the depths of the ocean as a realm devoid of life. As Yan Bei gazed into the abyss beneath his feet, an inexplicable sensation of imminent engulfment seized him. After surveying his surroundings, a grave expression settled upon his face. He discerned an air of eerie strangeness pervading the area. Each time he approached the chasm, a vague whisper seemed to echo in his ears, as if beckoning him to enter the Dragon's Fall Abyss. In a moment of resolve, Yan Bei seized a small fish and imbued it with a fragment of his soul power, directing it towards the abyss. However, scarcely had the little fish swum 500 meters when, bang, it was suddenly crushed to smithereens by an unseen force. Blood trickled from the corner of Yan Bei's mouth. His expression one of shock. The soul power he had infused into the fish was likewise obliterated in an instant. He was utterly oblivious to the origin of that power. By no means will I yield to superstition. Yan Bei resolutely caught another fish, reapplying his soul sense to it. He endeavored to discern the source of that formidable force. The fish resumed its journey forward. Bang! This fish too met the same fate, though it managed to swim an additional half-meter compared to the first. Yan Bei spat out another mouthful of blood, the dual assaults on his soul leaving him with a splitting headache. It took him a considerable while to recover. Though he still could not unravel the source of that force, he seemed to have grasped a certain pattern. To validate his hypothesis, he caught yet another fish, this time refraining from using his soul sense, instead compelling it to swim directly towards the Dragon's Fall Abyss. Bang! When this fish was once more reduced to a mere pulp, Yan Bei's expression transformed into one of astonishment. At that moment, he finally comprehended why the ancient dragon required a blood sacrifice of 1,000,000 souls to unveil the underwater relics. He caught 3 fish in total, all of which swam steadfastly towards the Dragon's Fall Abyss, following identical paths. Yet the distances they traversed were markedly different. The first was crushed after a mere 500 meters, the second exceeded the first by half a meter, while the third precisely reached 501 meters. Yan Bei realized that with each creature perishing on the perilous journey towards the Dragon's Fall Abyss, the distance one could approach the chasm increased by half a meter. This place extended endlessly, shrouded in obscurity, and one could only speculate how many lives would need to be sacrificed to fully clear this path. No wonder a blood sacrifice of 1,000,000 souls was deemed necessary. The path before him was entirely paved with mountains of corpses and seas of bones. Yan Bei's expression was grave. At this moment, he had discerned the method to enter the abyss of the fallen dragon. Yet, to demand a blood sacrifice of 1,000,000 souls? What a jest! It appeared that the fortuitous opportunities here did not belong to him. With a soft sigh, Yan Bei shook his head. He withdrew a golden key, his demeanor somewhat despondent. To possess the key that could unlock the underwater relics, yet be unable to enter, was akin to having a breathtaking beauty resting in his bed, while his desires remained impotent. What a torment! A bitter smile crossed Yan Bei's face. Very well, I shall first refine the essence of the half-saint and break through before making any further plans. Thus, he prepared to leave the abyss of the fallen dragon. However, at that moment, the golden key in his hand suddenly emitted a faint golden glow. Before Yan Bei could discern the cause of this phenomenon, a resounding boom echoed. A golden beam of light shot skyward from the depths of the abyss of the fallen dragon. This golden beam illuminated the entire sea region as if it were daylight, visible even from afar. What is this? What has transpired in the abyss of the fallen dragon? Look, it seems there are figures within that beam. Could it be that the underwater relic has been unlocked? This golden beam instantly captured the attention of many formidable sea clans, who hastily made their way toward the source, simultaneously producing talismans to report the unfolding events to their respective factions. On the other side, enveloped in the golden beam, Yan Bei's expression shifted dramatically. He realized that the moment he was shrouded in this radiant light, he found himself utterly immobilized. Even the power within him was suppressed and could not be summoned in the slightest. Soon after, an inexplicable force began to draw him toward the abyss of the fallen dragon. This sudden turn of events caused Yin Bei's countenance to pale. What in the world is this? Release me. The abyss of the fallen dragon was extraordinarily peculiar. Charging in unprepared would likely lead to his being crushed like those small fish. Yet now, rendered immobile and his strength sealed, what could he do? He could not even summon his future self at this moment. Despair washed over Yin Bei. It's over. It seems I am truly destined to meet my end here today. But the next scene caused his heart to tremble. As he continued to descend, he passed beyond the very spot where the small fish had perished. Apart from his immobility and the confinement of his power, nothing else occurred. Could it be? Yin Bei glanced at the key still radiating golden light in his hand. Is it because I possess this key that the restraining force within the abyss of the fallen dragon has not harmed me? Time seemed to stretch indefinitely until Yin Bei's feet finally made contact with the ground once more. This brought him immense relief. It appeared that the key had indeed played a vital role, allowing him to successfully reach the bottom of the abyss of the fallen dragon. In that moment, the key, which had been emanating golden light, seemed to exhaust its energy and fell back into his hand, the golden beam dissipating alongside it. With the disappearance of the golden beam, the force that had suppressed Yin Bei also vanished. His face lit up with joy as he felt his inner strength returning to its former state. The restoration of his power provided Yin Bei with a semblance of comfort. He gazed around, his pupils abruptly constricting. A scent of decay, steeped in the passage of time, assailed him, and before him stood an immense, ancient palace. He lifted his gaze to the plaque above the palace, his expression shifting in astonishment. The words Dragon Palace were unmistakably engraved upon it. Dragon Palace? What manner of place is this? Delving into the memory of the ancient dragon, he was shocked to find no records of such a place. This indicated that the Dragon Palace was entirely absent from historical texts. It was likely that the entire underwater world was unaware of the existence of this palace, aside from the Sea Dragon Palace. Yin Bei's countenance turned grave, an involuntary chill creeping down his spine. The eerie sounds, the path that could only be forged by a million souls, the golden beam of light that had guided him here, and the Dragon Palace unrecorded in history. All of these elements exuded an uncanny aura. Chapter 174, Unyielding Will. Familiar essence standing before the Dragon Palace. Yin Bei hesitated, uncertain whether to enter. The air was thick with decay, as if it had existed for an eternity. Come, enter. I have waited for millennia. A haunting voice echoed through the air. Yin Bei's expression changed dramatically, instinctively retreating a step. Once again, this peculiar voice. Before plunging into the dragon abyss, he had sensed a faint voice guiding him. Now, this voice had returned, clearer than before. As if someone were whispering directly in his ear, sending chills down his spine. Yin Bei quickly scanned his surroundings, but found nothing. The strangeness of the situation caused beads of cold sweat to trickle down his forehead. He pondered whether he should step into the Dragon Palace. The place was steeped in mystery and eeriness, yet a persistent voice within urged him that if he did not enter, he might miss a significant opportunity. Enough of this. I have come this far. I shall take the plunge. Ultimately, Yin Bei steeled his resolve, bravely stepping into the Dragon Palace. He summoned every ounce of his power, ready to react to any sign of danger. As he ventured deeper, the atmosphere within the palace grew increasingly frigid, reminiscent of the gates of the underworld, sending a shiver down his spine. After an indeterminate amount of time, Yin Bei arrived in a dimly lit hall. Before he could fully comprehend his surroundings, a spectral voice echoed throughout the chamber. At last, you have arrived. I have awaited you for so long. Surprised, Yin Bei immediately channeled his power to its zenith, radiating formidable energy. Who goes there? A golden light streaked across the room, coalescing into a middle-aged man adorned in a dragon robe. Simultaneously, the gems embedded in the hall began to glow, illuminating the entire space. The middle-aged man scrutinized Yin Bei with an impassive expression, uttering no words as he extended his hand and pressed lightly into the void. Boom! An invisible pressure emanated from him, bearing down upon Yin Bei. His countenance shifted drastically. In that moment, he felt a terrifying aura akin to divine wrath descending upon him. In an instant, the very bones of Yin Bei's body creaked under immense pressure. Clenching his teeth, he was engulfed in astonishment. The aura emanating from the middle-aged man was unprecedented, extraordinarily powerful. He even felt that this man was significantly stronger than the Saint King, Li Daoran. Furthermore, this overwhelming presence bore an intent to subjugate him, to compel him to kneel. But how could that be possible? Yin Bei summoned all his strength to resist the urge to collapse. As he approached his limit, a thought crossed his mind. Perhaps kneeling wouldn't be such a disgrace after all. The middle-aged man observed Yin Bei struggle and spoke. his words imbued with a kind of enchantment that inspired an involuntary sense of submission. Even Yanbei nearly succumbed to the urge to kneel. Yet, in that critical moment, he bit his tongue, awakening himself. With a hoarse growl, he declared, "You shall not make me kneel." His eyes sparkled with indomitable resolve. Boom. At that moment, his blood surged through his veins, golden lifeblood piercing the heavens, while the chaotic celestial body reached its zenith. Realizing the existence of the chaotic body, the middle-aged man displayed a look of surprise. Such a physique indeed. He pressed his hand against the void, slightly intensifying the force. Puff. Under this terrifying pressure, Yanbei coughed up a mouthful of blood. Yet he remained standing. To compel him to kneel would require nothing short of his demise. Moments passed. Boom. Under this extreme oppression, Yanbei's cultivation unexpectedly broke through once more, ascending directly to the pinnacle of the transcendent ninth level. He was but a step away from becoming a half-saint. The middle-aged man, witnessing this, deemed it sufficient and withdrew his pressure. Instantly, the grand hall returned to its former state. Excellent, excellent. To withstand my aura for so long at the transcendent realm is commendable indeed. No wonder you were chosen. The middle-aged man laughed heartily upon seeing Yanbei endure for such an extended period under his oppressive aura. Yanbei, drenched in sweat and utterly exhausted, remained vigilant, contemplating whether he should summon his future self. After all, this man was extraordinarily powerful, and he saw no chance of victory. However, the cost of summoning his future self was exorbitant, risking the potential destruction of the Hongwu continent. For a moment, Yanbei was lost in thought. Young man, I have aided you in breaking through your realm. Should you not express your gratitude? I ask for little, merely your agreement to 3 matters. The middle-aged man floated before Yanbei, wearing a smile devoid of the earlier intimidation. Yanbei regarded him with curiosity, sensing no malevolence from this man. In fact, there was an aura about him that felt oddly familiar. Yet, he could not recall where he had encountered it before. Straining to steady himself, Yanbei managed to rise, slightly cupping his hands in respect. May I ask who you are, esteemed elder, and why have you called me here? He had been led to this place solely by the voice of the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man smiled faintly and said, "It is not by my own volition that I have summoned you. Rather, I have been commanded by another to await your arrival." YNBI, naturally skeptical, chuckled bitterly. Surely, a person of your extraordinary caliber cannot be compelled by another. Upon hearing YNBI's words, the middle-aged man erupted in laughter. You have a way with words. I find you increasingly likable. YNBI could only smile in response. His flattery was unintentional. The middle-aged man was indeed extraordinarily powerful, the strongest he had encountered after the esteemed Qing Di. Not even the holy King Li Daoran could be compared to him. The esteemed Qing Di. YNBI suddenly slapped his forehead, recalling the familiar aura he sensed from the middle-aged man. That aura was none other than that of the Qing Di. Chapter 175. A great calamity approaches. Do you know the Qing Di? YNBI inquired uncertainly. The middle-aged man turned to him, satisfaction gleaming in his eyes. To respond so quickly is truly commendable. I have been specifically dispatched by my master to await your arrival. This middle-aged man was named Long Outyin, whose true form was that of a pure-blooded 5-clawed golden dragon, having attained the quasi-emperor realm, and served as the exclusive steed of Qing Di during his conquests across myriad realms. Many thousands of years ago, Qing Di had foreseen the emergence of a remarkable individual destined to shake the cosmos from the Hongwu continent. Thus, he sent the 5-clawed golden dragon to await this future personage. Now, after countless years, that destined individual, YNBI, had fortuitously arrived at this juncture. Upon hearing this, YNBI was momentarily rendered speechless. You awaited me here thousands of years ago? Such a revelation surpassed his comprehension. The fact that the esteemed Qing Di could foresee the future thousands of years prior was truly terrifying. My young friend, foreseeing the future is not so extraordinary. In time, you too may possess such abilities, Long Outyin said with a calm smile as he approached YNBI. Under Long Outyin's gaze, YNBI felt a twinge of discomfort. Why have you awaited my arrival? Given that he was sent by the esteemed Qing Di, it seemed there was no malice intended. YNBI felt a slight sense of relief, as Long Outyin was indeed formidable. Long Outyin's expression grew solemn as he sighed lightly. It is permissible for me to share this with you. Are you aware that beyond the Hongwu continent, other worlds exist? Other worlds, YNBI nodded. I have some knowledge. The remnants of the esteemed Qing Di once recounted such tales to me. He understood that beyond the Hongwu continent, there were numerous realms inhabited by various races, including humans, demons, and monsters. The Hongwu continent, where he resided, was merely one world within the realm of light. Beyond the realm of light lay the dark world and the terrifying demon race. Now, a great calamity approaches Hongwu, and I await you for this very matter. Long Outyin said with an exceedingly grave tone. The Hongwu calamity? Yanbi furrowed his brow. Long Outyin, recalling the past, was filled with indignation. It is a long story. Back in the day, after my master endured countless tribulations to finally attain the status of emperor, the resulting upheaval attracted the arrival of a celestial demon emperor. The celestial demon, by nature brutal and ruthless, sought to obliterate the Hongwu continent without hesitation. The master would not stand idly by. He engaged in battle with the celestial demon emperor. This conflict raged for several months, shattering starry rivers and collapsing the great Tao. Thousands of years ago, upon the successful attainment of his imperial status, the Azure Emperor faced the arrival of the celestial demon emperor from the Shadow Realm, who aimed to slay him while his powers were still unstable. Fortunately, the Azure Emperor was a chaos blue lotus, and after achieving his status, he possessed unparalleled strength, battling the celestial demon emperor for several months. Ultimately, the celestial demon emperor was forced to retreat in defeat. However, the Azure Emperor did not emerge unscathed. Having engaged in combat with a foe of equal caliber right after his ascension, he sustained grave injuries to his great Tao. Despite the countless methods he devised to heal his wounds, he ultimately failed, and from that moment forth, his cultivation stagnated. Forever barred from ascending to the status of Heavenly Emperor, the defeated celestial demon emperor contemplated annihilating the Hongwu continent multiple times thereafter. Yet he could not succeed while the Azure Emperor remained alive. As millennia passed, the Azure Emperor, due to the lingering injuries to his great Tao, succumbed to the ravages of time and was on the verge of entering eternal rest. In stark contrast, the celestial demon emperor thrived in his prime. Standing beneath the starry sky, the Azure Emperor gazed longingly at the Hongwu continent behind him, releasing a deep sigh. He understood that upon his demise, this world would surely fall victim to the celestial demon's tyranny. His heart ached with compassion. Ultimately, the Azure Emperor chose to relinquish the cycle of reincarnation, utilizing the remnants of his power to transform his imperial form into an ancient formation, with his consciousness serving as the core, thereby safeguarding the entire Hongwu continent behind him. On that day, blood rain fell from the heavens, mourning the loss of the Azure Emperor throughout the realm. On the very day of his passing, the celestial demon emperor sensed this shift and immediately descended upon the Hongwu continent, intent on its destruction. Yet, the ancient formation, forged from the Azure Emperor's essence, began to reveal its might. Although he had perished, the formation established by his imperial body and consciousness still suffocated the celestial demon emperor. Enraged, the celestial demon emperor, feeling insulted that he could not defeat the Azure Emperor while he lived, found it intolerable that he dared oppose him even in death. He unleashed his full power, aiming to shatter the ancient formation in one fell swoop. However, he severely underestimated its strength. The power of this ancient formation rivaled that of the Azure Emperor at the moment of his ascension. In the end, the celestial demon emperor nearly met his demise within the formation, retreating in disarray back to the Shadow Realm. Thus, the Hongwu continent temporarily withstood the onslaught of the celestial demon under the protection of the Azure Emperor. Yet, over the ensuing millennia, as the celestial demon emperor intermittently attacked, the ancient formation had significantly weakened. According to Long Outyin's calculations, in a few hundred years, the formation's power would be utterly depleted. At that time, the celestial demon emperor would undoubtedly descend upon the Hongwu continent, enslaving the world and potentially leading to its destruction. After hearing these revelations, Yanbi stood in a daze, his eyes reddening, unable to suppress a wave of sorrow. Ever since he became aware of the celestial demons and their malevolent nature, he had pondered why these merciless beings had never set their sights on the Hongwu continent. Until now, I have come to realize that it is not that the celestial demons have overlooked the Hongwu continent. Rather, there have always been those who silently guard this realm. When one lives in comfort, they remain oblivious to the burdens borne by others. The actions of the esteemed Azure Emperor can be described as having consumed his last flicker of light to illuminate the entire world. While alive, he instilled fear across the ages. Even after death, he transformed his body into a formation, continuing to protect the world. What kind of magnanimity must one possess to achieve such a feat? Yanbi inhaled deeply, solemnly bowing towards the void beyond the hall. The Azure Emperor merits the respect of every individual on the Hongwu continent. Long Outyin observed this scene with a smile, nodding in approval, setting aside talent and other attributes. It is this spirit that satisfies him. It seems the master did not err in his judgment. It is no wonder he entrusted the Tianqing world to you. Long Outyin patted Yanbi on the shoulder, clearly pleased. Yanbi's heart trembled. Indeed, a being of quasi-imperial caliber could discern the essence of the Tianqing continent within him. Long Outyin chuckled lightly. Let us not dwell on such matters. Follow me. for only you can inherit the treasures of this place." With a hearty laugh, he clasped his hands behind his back and strode deeper into the grand hall. What treasures await inheritance? Yin Bei pondered, wondering if they were bequeathed by the Azure Emperor. He chose not to dwell on it further and followed Long Out Yin into the hall. Meanwhile, outside, a multitude had gathered, comprised of powerful sea clans from all directions of the ocean depths. Is the underwater relic truly about to be unveiled? Just moments ago, someone had witnessed strange phenomena here. Individuals had entered. Numerous strong figures engaged in animated discussions. At that moment, a resounding dragon's roar echoed from afar. The waters heaved, and a terrifying aura surged forth from the distance. It was a colossal red dragon, stretching 10,000 zhong, its fearsome presence instilling dread among the gathered sea clans, prompting them to hastily withdraw. Chapter 176. The Dragon Realm. The formidable red dragon was none other than the ancestor Qiulong. He had traversed from the Sea Dragon Palace to the Blackwater Sea, only to find it deserted upon his arrival. As for the Ink Sea King, he had long vanished without a trace. Ultimately, he apprehended all individuals from the Blackwater Hall, intending to bring them back to the Sea Dragon Palace for thorough interrogation. However, en route back, he received news of a disturbance at the Dragon's Abyss, suspected to herald the opening of the underwater relic. Thus, he hastily returned to ascertain the situation. To think that Ancestor Qiulong arrived so swiftly. Many were taken aback at the sight of the red dragon hovering above, for he was a superlative powerhouse at the pinnacle of the 9th tier. Esteemed friends, has there been any anomaly in this place? The Ancestor Qiulong transformed into an elder clad in a Taoist robe, descending gracefully from the void. The crowd, upon witnessing this, hastily clasped their hands in reverence towards him. As the Grand Elder of the Sea Dragon Palace, Ancestor Qiulong held an esteemed position, wielding significant influence within the underwater realm. As soon as he posed his question, a robust man stepped forward, clasping his hands in deference and stating, "To be candid, esteemed elder, one of my disciples claims to have witnessed a beam of golden light erupting from the depths of the Dragon's Fall abyss, followed by a figure soaring down along the light." Upon hearing this, the ancient dragon elder furrowed his brow and inquired, "Is this information credible?" "Absolutely. This phenomenon has not been observed by just my disciple. Many present can attest to it," the stout man replied respectfully, his heart swelling with elation at the opportunity to converse with such a powerful figure. "Thank you," the ancient dragon elder acknowledged before turning his gaze toward the Dragon's Fall abyss, his frown deepening. According to the records of the Sea Dragon Palace, there had never been any mention of golden light emerging from this abyss. If this were not a mere fabrication, then it implied that someone had indeed entered the depths. The records indicated that to access the underwater relics, a blood sacrifice of 100,000 souls was required. Yet, there was no trace of any sanguine presence here, suggesting that the individual who entered did not rely on blood offerings to gain access. The ancient dragon elder pondered uneasily. Could the records be erroneous? He remained oblivious to what treasures the individual might have discovered within the relics. It seemed that all they could do was gaze in longing. Many powerful beings sighed in unison. Although they yearned to explore the underwater relics, the Dragon's Fall abyss appeared no different from usual. As a realm of death in the underwater world, its terrifying nature was well known. Approaching it was tantamount to a death sentence. In that moment, a dilemma arose among the crowd. Why not send that valiant warrior to test the waters? Perhaps he could gain entry, someone shouted amidst the throng. However, this suggestion was soon met with derision from others. Why don't you go then? Do you think everyone else is a fool, while you alone possess wisdom? What did you say? Have the audacity to repeat that. One retorted, pointing aggressively. I'm talking about you. What is the matter? Are you unsatisfied? Chaos erupted as the crowd became embroiled in a brawl, and the ancient dragon elder, who had been contemplating how to enter the Dragon's Fall abyss, was disturbed by the commotion, his expression darkening. He had emerged from the Sea Dragon Palace in a furious state, vowing to avenge the young dragon lord. Yet, much to his dismay, that scoundrel, the king of the Ink Sea, had abandoned his comrades from the Blackwater Hall. Now, as he contemplated how to enter the abyss, his thoughts were further disrupted by the altercation. Silence. A surge of unrestrained fury welled within the ancient dragon elder, and with a swift motion, he obliterated the two combatants, reducing them to a mist of blood. Instantly, the atmosphere grew still as onlookers gazed at the ancient dragon elder in fear, wary of incurring his wrath. After dispatching the two, for reasons unknown, the elder felt a significant portion of his anger dissipate. Esteemed guests, please refrain from the clamor. Is it not merely an exploration? I shall select a suitable candidate, he addressed the frightened crowd. With a wave of his hand, a striking woman clad in a flowing red gown appeared in the midst of them, her beauty radiant and captivating. Goodness, what a stunning woman. She far surpasses my own siren, someone murmured in awe. Many individuals were captivated upon encountering the woman in red, yet they swiftly suppressed the ignoble desires that flared within them. After all, she was a person of the esteemed Qiu Long Lao Zu. To entertain any nefarious thoughts would surely invite death. This is a prisoner captured by me. She shall venture forth to scout the path. Qiu Long Lao Zu remarked with a cold smirk, directing his gaze toward the woman. The woman in red was none other than the fire spirit of the Blackwater Palace. Following Yin Bei's departure, she had ordered the dissolution of the palace to avoid retribution. Nevertheless, the fire spirit chose to remain, clinging to a glimmer of hope. Little did she expect that, merely a day after Yin Bei's exit, Qiu Long Lao Zu would descend upon the Blackwater Sea, capturing all remaining individuals of the palace, herself included. At this moment, the fire spirit's eyes were devoid of light. Since her capture, she had resigned herself to the grim reality of her fate. Qiu Long Lao Zu extended his finger, from which emanated a radiant glow that transformed into a mental imprint enveloping the fire spirit's consciousness. You shall proceed ahead and scout the path for me. With those words, the fire spirit found her body moving uncontrollably toward the precipice of the dragon's abyss. In this instant, despair consumed her heart. Yet the control of the mental imprint rendered her incapable of even shedding tears. As the fire spirit advanced step by step toward the abyss, a sudden exclamation escaped Qiu Long Lao Zu's lips as he discerned the presence of another mental imprint within her consciousness. He shattered that imprint and instantly accessed the entirety of the fire spirit's memories. Qiu Long Lao Zu's countenance shifted. In that moment, he gleaned certain revelations from her recollections. Deep within the Dragon Palace, following the path of Long Ao Tian, Yin Bei traversed beyond a luminous veil into an extraordinarily vast expanse. Is this a miniature world? As the sovereign of the Tianqing realm, Yin Bei immediately sensed a shift in the laws and order of this new realm. He had entered an alternate world. Indeed, this is the miniature world that once gestated within me, the Dragon Realm. Long Ao Tian proclaimed with pride. As a quasi-emperor, he too had forged a world within himself. The Dragon Realm. Yin Bei's expression shifted as he surveyed his surroundings. The air was thick with an exceptionally pure dragon energy. This place bore little resemblance to a habitat for humans, but rather seemed tailored for dragons. Come forth, my true form has awaited you for a long time. Long Ao Tian said with a serene smile, as the surrounding space began to morph. They ascended into the starry heavens above the Dragon Realm. Upon beholding the celestial spectacle before him, Yin Bei was rendered speechless. A colossal golden dragon, spanning the cosmos, floated in the void, exuding an unfathomable aura of terror. Though the dragon remained still, it seemed to exert a suppressive force over an entire expanse of time and space. However, Yin Bei noted that despite the dragon's imposing stature, it lacked vitality. Upon closer inspection, he was horrified to discover that the majority of the dragon's scales were shattered, and its body was marred by desiccated blood. This was not a living creature, but rather a dragon's corpse. Predecessor, could this be? Yin Bei turned to look at Long Ao Tian, his gaze heavy with unspoken words. Long Ao Tian nodded gently, a carefree smile gracing his lips. You are not mistaken. This dragon corpse is indeed my true form. My original body perished during a battle with the celestial demons thousands of years ago. What remains now is merely a fragment of my essence, preserved by the Qing Emperor's extraordinary means. As Yin Bei observed the nonchalance on Long Ao Tian's face, an indescribable sensation stirred within him. Although he could not comprehend the events of that distant past, the sight of the dragon corpse made it clear that Long Ao Tian had endured an unimaginably brutal conflict. In that moment, Yin Bei understood the sheer ferocity and might of the celestial demons. Even a being of Long Ao Tian's caliber, akin to a quasi-emperor, could not escape the clutches of death. Old comrades had perished or been gravely wounded, and now, perhaps only a few remained. The ancient formation manifested by his master would not endure much longer. The future of the Hongwu continent depended on you all. Long Ao Tian sighed, shaking his head, his expression heavy with gravity. Yin Bei's countenance mirrored this weight. The remnant of the Qing Emperor had once witnessed the brutal nature of the celestial demons through his chaotic eye. They were willing to pay any price for the world's essence. For millennia, the celestial demons had coveted the Hongwu continent, waiting for the ancient formation of the Qing Emperor to shatter, at which point the entire world would face annihilation. Should no one arise to thwart the celestial demons' advance, the Hongwu continent would inevitably fall, and all living beings would become their prey, subjugated to their will. Even the Qing Tian continent, entrusted to him by the venerable Qing Emperor, would fall victim to invasion. In such a scenario, his family and friends would be unable to escape unscathed. Yin Bei felt the burden upon his shoulders grow heavier. Having just traversed to this world, his initial aspiration in cultivating was merely to protect his master and Ling heir from harm. However, As time passed, he acquired more loved ones, and the need to safeguard them multiplied. Thus, he relentlessly pursued strength. He understood that only by becoming powerful could he avoid being bullied in this chaotic era. At that moment, faces of his family and friends flashed through Yanbei's mind, and he shuddered at the thought of what would become of them should the celestial demons invade. He could not fathom the madness he would succumb to in such a situation. He would not allow such a tragedy to unfold. Long Aotian stood aside, acutely aware of the emotional turmoil within Yanbei, yet he remained silent. Time passed in silence. Yanbei exhaled deeply, his eyes now bright and resolute. He bowed to Long Aotian. Had it not been for Long Aotian's revelations today, he might have continued to live in a daze, failing to protect his loved ones when the celestial demon struck. It seems you have found your purpose, Long Aotian remarked with a serene smile. Yanbei nodded, his gaze unwavering. I have reflected deeply. I cannot bear to envision my family and friends suffering at the hands of the celestial demons should the ancient formation shatter. I wish to grow stronger, not for myself, but to safeguard my family and friends. His voice was imbued with profound emotion, his tone resolute. Long Aotian, however, slowly shook his head. To grow stronger? How strong can you truly become? Yanbei fell silent for a moment, but soon his gaze grew resolute. And taking a deep breath, he summoned all his strength to gaze at the starry sky and shouted, I shall grow powerful enough to make the heavens tremble. I shall grow powerful enough to make the celestial demons retreat. I shall grow powerful enough that no one in this realm dares to claim supremacy. Thunderous echoes reverberated. As these words resonated, it seemed as if some unseen force responded. The entire dragon realm, and even the outer Hongwu continent, began to tremble. In an instant, countless bolts of lightning filled the void, and a series of booming sounds resounded throughout the world. At that moment, Long Aotian looked up at the starry sky, his face a portrait of shock. This young man's oath had indeed stirred the resonance of the great Tao. It appeared that the spirit of the world in the Hongwu continent held him in high regard as well. Suddenly, the previously dormant dragon corpse began to emit a radiant glow, a golden divine light soaring into the heavens, instantly merging with Yanbei's brow. This scene caused Long Aotian's expression to shift dramatically. Stop, you damned spirit of the world, that was meant for him. What do you mean by this? Long Aotian shouted furiously into the void. He had waited for a millennium to reserve this treasure for Yanbei, and now it had been intercepted. This was an interception by the heavenly Tao itself, bestowing his treasure as a mere favor to Yanbei. Long Aotian was on the brink of madness. Yet, no response returned to him, regardless of his rage. Meanwhile, Yanbei had closed his eyes, his body motionless like a clay statue, as if he were ensnared in some profound state. Within his consciousness, a dragon-like entity, radiant and resplendent, swam gracefully. Moments later, with a resounding crash, this luminous dragon shattered into pieces, transforming into arcane ancient characters that appeared in Yanbei's consciousness. Upon discerning these characters, Yanbei's entire being trembled. The true dragon's treasure technique. In ancient times, there were 10 forbidden ferocious beasts, and the true dragon was among them. Each of the 10 ferocious beasts possessed a unique and unparalleled talent, collectively known as the 10 ferocious treasure techniques. Each of these techniques could unleash earth-shattering power, with the true dragon, as the foremost among them, possessing an attack strength unparalleled in the world. The might of the 10 ferocious treasure techniques is unmatched, and their effectiveness does not diminish even when practiced by other races, making them highly coveted by cultivators. Now he had obtained the true dragon's treasure technique. This was an invincible treasure technique even more formidable than the heavenly finger or the hand of the celestials. With the augmentation of the true dragon's treasure technique, he was confident that, being at the 9th level of the extraordinary realm, he would be invincible beneath the sage level. No matter how powerful a demigod might be, they would not stand a chance against him. It is crucial to note that he was merely at the 9th level of the extraordinary realm. Should he break through to the demigod level, he would dare to confront even true sages head-on. Chapter 178. The shock of the old ancestor of the dragon outside the dragon abyss. Fire Spirit approached the precipice with a face ashen, moving like a mere shell of her former self. Such a beautiful woman, it was truly a pity. If only I could indulge in her. I would willingly sacrifice a decade of my life. Although Fire Spirit's cultivation was not high, her beauty was striking. For she was the gem sought after by the king of Mo High throughout the entire Blackwater Sea. In this moment, as the crowd witnesses her imminent downfall, a wave of sorrow washes over them. Meanwhile, the countenance of the venerable Qiu Long fluctuates between shadows and light. Just moments ago, while attempting to exert his mental prowess over the Fire Spirit, he discovered an additional spiritual imprint residing within her consciousness, indicating that she had previously been under someone else's control. After shattering the spiritual mark affixed to the Fire Spirit's mind, he proceeded to delve into her memories. hoping to unearth information regarding the monarch of the Ink Sea. However, the revelations he encountered were startling. As he explored the depths of the fire spirit's recollections, he was astounded to find that the one who had slain the young lord of the Qiulong was not his true form, but rather a white-clad youth conjured from illusion. This realization ignited a fierce rage within Qiulong. He discerned that this ethereal youth was not of the sea tribe, but belonged to the human race. How audacious for a human to venture into the depths of the ocean to slay his progeny. Was this not an act of folly? To discern the visage of this white-clad figure, he concentrated all his mental energy, determined to rend him asunder. Yet, upon beholding the features of this youth, his brow furrowed in perplexity. For reasons unbeknownst to him, he felt an unsettling familiarity with this white-clad individual. Striving to recall where he might have encountered him, a sudden thought struck him. 1 year prior, he had received a certain item. After rummaging through his storage ring, he retrieved a token, prominently engraved with the characters Da Yin. This token represented a bounty issued over a year ago by the Da Yin Holy Land, one of the 4 sacred domains of the eastern region. It was a public notice to apprehend a wanted individual, with all extraordinary factions in the eastern region possessing such a token. The token bore the facial features and identity information of the fugitive, facilitating the Da Yin Holy Land's pursuit of this person. At the time, the master of the Sea Dragon Palace was in seclusion, and thus the bounty fell into the hands of Qiulong. Upon acquiring the token, Qiulong had initially paid it little heed, merely glancing at it before casting it into his storage ring. After all, how could a wanted criminal possibly venture into the ocean? He considered it merely a formality to appease the Da Yin Holy Land. Yet, as a series of shocking events unfolded in the eastern region, he found himself scrutinizing the token more closely. Infusing the token with spiritual energy, a figure of a white-clad youth materialized before him. As he compared the apparition on the token with the youth from the fire spirit's memories, astonishment seized him. How could this be? It truly was him. Qiulong's expression morphed into one of disbelief. Yin Bei, what a remarkable coincidence. The very one who had slain his grandson was this individual? The gravity of the situation dawned on him. The name Yin Bei had become renowned throughout the eastern region. As the foremost prodigy of the eastern domain, he had reached the pinnacle of the 4 extremes at the tender age of 20, overshadowing the elite of various extraordinary factions. Even the Da Yin Holy Land, wary of his burgeoning power, could not afford to let him flourish unchecked. The Holy Sovereign had even descended upon the Fire Phoenix Valley, determined to extinguish him in his cradle. Yet, with the formidable presence of the 2 venerable sages, the Fire Phoenix and Ice Phoenix, the Holy Sovereign's ambitions had ultimately been thwarted. At the critical moment, the pinnacle of the semi-holy realm, Feng Jiutian, shattered the shackles and ascended to become a new saint, turning the tide. Subsequently, the Da Yin Holy Land was forced to retreat, sealing its mountain and ceasing its activities. From that moment on, not only did the Fire Phoenix Valley rise to become the 4th holy land in the eastern domain, known as the Phoenix Feather Holy Land, but the name Yin Bei also spread far and wide, becoming a household name. Cursed be it, how could it be him? The expression on the face of the Qiulong ancestor darkened instantly. Upon realizing the true identity of the Mo High King, a chill spread through his heart. It was common knowledge across the eastern domain that Yin Bei was backed by the Phoenix Feather Holy Land. This newly established holy land was rumored to have a saintly king-level powerhouse stationed within. In comparison, the most formidable presence in his own Sea Dragon Palace was merely the semi-holy palace master. The disparity between the two was undeniably vast. If he were to attempt to eliminate Yin Bei, the Sea Dragon Palace could not withstand the righteous fury of the Phoenix Feather Holy Land, which would obliterate them in an instant. For a moment, the Qiulong ancestor fell into silence. Qiulong Shaozuan was his most cherished disciple, and the thought of his demise ignited a fierce rage within him, vowing to exact vengeance. However, upon discovering the identity of his adversary, he found himself contemplating many factors. The strength of the opposing force was overwhelmingly formidable, leaving little hope for revenge. Even if he were to slay Yin Bei, he would be unable to withstand the wrath of the Phoenix Feather Holy Land. What to do? If he refrained from seeking vengeance, his heart would remain unsatisfied. Yet, if he pursued it, he would be no match for them, risking the annihilation of his entire lineage. This predicament left the Qiulong ancestor feeling utterly perplexed. However, as he continued to delve into the memories of the fire spirit, he uncovered an even more astonishing revelation. The fire spirit had once overheard, by chance, that Yin Bei intended to venture to the dragon-falling abyss, seemingly in search of something. Yin Bei's intention to explore the dragon-falling abyss coincided with the occurrence of strange phenomena. Could it be that the person who entered the abyss was indeed Yin Bei? A surge of possibilities flooded the Qiulong ancestor's mind. Regardless of whether it was him or not, he felt compelled to take a gamble. With a resolute expression, The Qiu-Long ancestor contemplated fiercely. This grievance must be avenged. He recognized that this was his only opportunity. He did not intend to take action himself. Instead, he infused spiritual energy into the token in his hand, causing a beam of light to shoot forth and vanish into the void. At that moment, a gasp echoed, pulling the Qiu-Long ancestor back to reality. What? Nothing has happened. The crowd erupted in astonished exclamations, their eyes wide with disbelief as they gazed toward the dragon falling abyss. The fire spirit had already traversed over 500 meters, yet remained unharmed. The gruesome spectacle of exploding into a mist of blood had not transpired. The Qiu-Long ancestor also noted the position of the fire spirit, and his expression shifted. Could it be that the restriction had dissipated? A tremor coursed through him, yet he restrained himself from rushing forward, instead urging the fire spirit to move further ahead. However, as the fire spirit delved deeper, the terrifying power of the restriction still failed to erupt. At this moment, he confirmed that the restrictive force had indeed vanished. Boom. The ancient dragon ancestor soared towards the dragon's abyss amidst the astonished gazes of the crowd, moving with astonishing speed. Continue to scout ahead. The ancient dragon ancestor remained cautious, extending his hand to draw the fire spirit closer, allowing it to hover approximately 100 meters in front of him. Should the fire spirit trigger a restriction, he would be able to react and retreat in an instant. The fire spirit's delicate face was filled with despair. Fear surged within her, yet she could not even weep. Rendered a mere human detector at the mercy of the ancient dragon ancestor. Chapter 179, The True Dragon's Treasure Technique, Breaking Through to Semi-Saint in the Dragon Realm. Yan Bei stood motionless in the starry sky, immersed in the deepest state of enlightenment.